All right, all right, all right. Let me see. Let me see. I need a new background too. 1 second. Add a new background. There we go. Show. Yep. All right. New background. All right. So I'm waiting for a couple of viewers to fall in. Actually, I'm pull you in. I'm just pull you in right now. Are you ready? Okay.
I am on
Oh,
stage.
boom, let me turn this. Boom. Okay. Hi, Joy.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, super excited. How are you?
I'm great. I'm awesome, and I'm excited. I hear echo. Why is it echo? Do you have a? Maybe I have echo cancellation on my thing. 1 second.
Yeah, I don't hear an echo.
I hear it on my end. I'm trying to wonder why. Sir, no face. Do you hear echo in the building?
You
1 second.
first. What's going on, sir? No face.
1 second, Joy. Let me get this right. I need that mod spot. Look, I got you, dog. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna head over to YouTube. I'm gonna make you a mod. Oh, he don't hear the echo, so I'm the only one in the echo. So as long as it don't drive me crazy,
Yeah.
it's on my end. I don't know why I hear it though.
Good morning. Good afternoon. I'm sorry. Good afternoon.
Okay, that's gonna get on my nerves.
Yeah.
All
Am I
right.
echoing too? Is it just you?
No, it's literally just me.
Oh.
Oh no, it's YouTube, but it's I'm the only one here, so that means it's on my end.
Oh, I see.
And I'm trying to wonder why is it happening because look at episode.
Oh,
Oh,
thank you
here.
so much.
Oh, dope. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, appreciate that, Wave God. Tony Smith is definitely in the building.
What's going on? Hey, Miss Tony. Thank you for being present. I see y'all hopping in here early. You don't want to miss none of it. I heard that.
Oh, we're gonna get to it too. I'm gonna just deal with the echoes as long as it's not in the recording. They say they don't hear it, you don't hear it, so
All
we're good. Okay.
right, let's do this.
Why is it happening? I'm trying, and I keep
I
talking myself
love it.
into
Like,
like
I'm gonna deal with
get
it.
past
I
Oh,
can't.
you know what? I think no, I'm wrong in that too. Never mind. I think I have YouTube up somewhere, and maybe it's playing through there.
Oh, you're hearing it from multiple locations. Maybe.
First of all, I need to get my professional up because this ain't.
Listen, let me tell you something. Since we're here, and while you get
Mhm.
that together, because I think this is an important moment, we can launch with this. And that is
Mhm.
if we're talking about unlearning and rebuilding and thriving in the context of anything, right? Our careers, our relationships, our well-being, our
Mhm.
understanding of the world. If we're talking about that, part of that is embracing the messy middle where we don't have the answers. There's a lot of confusion. We're having to show up to what is present in the moment and decide how we're going to respond to it. So much of life is those moments that until we learn to accept and give ourselves grace in those moments, this journey will always be a struggle.
That's a fact.
Right, like it will always be a struggle. So part of part of unlearning the things that most of us have learned is reframing our understanding of failure, right?
Mm.
Reframing our understanding of success, even, right, in the context of failure, or failure in the context of success, right?
Right.
So much of it is going to be that, right? Like, so it's like if we can't meet ourselves in the crevices of life and all the things that don't go exactly the way we hoped or thought they would or planned them to be, if we can't give ourselves grace in that, we could we could throw in the towel right now. Because that's
Right.
all it's gonna be, is that, right? Grace, forgiveness, acceptance, accountability, learning, integrating, and starting all over again.
Okay. Sorry. I fixed the problem too. But I,
Got it. See what I'm saying?
yeah, this is getting on my nerves right here. And so what happened was, first of all, thank you for dropping that. This is getting on my nerves. What? Okay. So okay, boom. Okay. So what happened was, I had another page open because I'm streaming to different platforms, and one of the platforms is open. So it was getting on my nerves
Yeah.
because I hear you dropping game, and I'm like, and the people are they're like, "Yes, Joy, okay, I can sign up." You know, they giving it up, and I'm like, "Nigga, this echo is gonna make. I'm gonna have to unlearn right now, right? How to not be frustrated."
Right. Or
No,
how to respond to frustration in a way that is helpful.
there it
Because it's
is.
not that you're not going to be frustrated. That's not the goal. The goal
Right.
is not to suppress or mute our emotions and what we feel. That's not the goal. The goal is to how do I embrace them, integrate them, and then learn how to respond to them in a way that's helpful according to what I want to create in my life and in the world. Right.
See, I like that because it reminds me of one. There's always going to be a struggle or a thing,
Hmm.
right? That's what we have to understand about life. It's like there's always going to be a thing, a struggle. So it's funny when we get in these moments where we're faced with these struggles, these hurdles, these whatever, right? These blocked spaces or whatever the case may be. We tend to panic a lot of times, or we get into a brand new space of like stress, panic, anxiety, and all
Hmm.
these things.
Hmm.
But sometimes it's about understanding that those things will come, and how do I what's the word I'm looking for? How do I not manage in these spaces, but
Hmm.
really how do I pull it together? How do I keep it together when faced with some of these things? You
Yeah.
know, and I think that's a part of like understanding if look, you know you're gonna go through your stuff. It's kind of like how I'm being spiritual and being a man of God, and I'm a believer that God will sustain. God covers me, right? So even when I come into these times where I'm in a dark season or something's happening in my life where I have no control over, I always got that foundation of knowing that look, God's gonna take care of you. Calm down. It's gonna be cool. Don't stress about it. Don't worry about it. So in a sense, it's the same thing as you living life in the same kind of way where struggle's gonna happen, man. How do I? Okay, this is a thing. How do I manage? How do I get past it? How do I get through it?
Hmm.
Instead of just breaking down and succumbing to the moment and like essentially dying in the moment, right? You
Hmm.
can't really move past it. So
Right.
that's a really good way to look at it. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
wow.
This is literally the cornerstone of my work. Right.
Okay, we both have. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm gonna
You
say
know,
Lashonda Lee
hey, hey,
is definitely in the building. Miss Lashonda is definitely. We got Hamilton High is definitely
in the
in the
building.
building. No,
Yeah.
but speaking about your work, I'm sorry. You were saying?
No, I was just saying what you're naming is the cornerstone of my work and why and why that is why is because one thing we all have in common is that life is going to life, right? It's
For
going to
sure.
challenge you, it's going to invite you to grow, it's going to make you uncomfortable, it's going to do all those things. And the sooner we can accept that and then invest in ourselves to develop the skills and tools to help us navigate that, the sooner we will be on our path to peace and liberation and all the things we want, right? Happiness,
For
all of
sure.
those things. Because it's not about trying to control the world around you, it's about controlling the world within you and understanding that as the world within you interacts with the world around you, there will be friction, there will be misalignment, there will be disconnection, there will be misunderstanding. How, in those moments, am I choosing to show up? And if I choose to only react to how I feel in the moment, as opposed to understanding how I
Mm,
feel, and then choosing what I want to do about that, that's where the self awareness works comes in, right? So the again, the neuroscience nerd in me wants to say like the fight or flight response to stuff, natural, normal, nothing wrong with that. Where we are blessed with our consciousness as human beings is to be able to acknowledge what is happening and then say, and now what do I want to do?
right.
Right? And now what do I want to do? Now that I see what it is, I've run into the corner, I've bumped my head, I've fallen down, whatever it has happened, now what do I want to do? And to be able to contextualize that inside of something greater. For a lot of people that is their
Yeah.
faith, for some people that is their core values, for some people that is their vision for, you know, the life that they want to live or the world they want to create, whatever that framework is. When you ask yourself that question, now what do I want to do? Hopefully, the choice you make is the thing that moves you closer to that,
Mm,
right?
yeah, it's interesting. The first of all, so many bars, and we're already starting with the bars already. Because you are you so worried about you can't really worry about the controlling the world around you, but it's about controlling the world within,
Yeah,
right? And that's such a bar, and I can imagine. I see myself once I deal with what's in here in the moment,
yeah,
right? And then you're kind of like you kind of give yourself this space to okay, now I have the freedom to actually clearly think
mm,
about how do I maintain from here,
yeah,
right? Because when you don't and you succumb to everything going on that you all these things you can't control, now it's a whirlwind of things, and
absolutely.
then there's no clarity in that. So how
None.
could you really truly just figure this thing out, whatever it is, whatever's going on in the moment. So I love the fact that like if you're dealing with it in here, trying to deal with it in here, and then you're sitting in that moment, no matter what's going on in here, you don't have to succumb to what's going on. Like it's like someone being in prison and choosing not to be violent,
You
right?
can do it.
Because you can do that. Like you choose peace. You choose to live your way like this. You choose to move in a certain kind of way where you. Oh, please,
I
yeah,
want a
please.
church finger right there. I want a church finger. Um, I want, again, speaking of unlearning,
Uh-huh.
I want us to challenge the idea that choosing peace does not sometimes include violence.
Choose to be. Oh, for sure, for sure.
Okay.
People use peace as the opposite of peace is violence.
And right.
Right,
And what
right, right,
I'm
right, right.
saying
For sure, for
is,
sure.
sometimes,
Mm,
in order to restore peace, we have to embrace violence.
mm,
Because if there's a disturbance of the
mm-hmm,
peace,
mm-hmm,
and my thought is peace is defined as the absence, total absolute absence of violence. When the peace is disturbed, if I'm unwilling to address and confront that, I'm either saying, denying what is happening, which is
mm-hmm,
living a delusion,
mm-hmm,
or I am saying, in order to allow this to happen with and live out this value or this understanding that peace is apart from violence, in order for that to happen, I have to then succumb to the turmoil that is going to cause me when I recognize that the peace is disturbed, but I'm choosing not to do anything about it because my definition of peace includes or excludes violence.
ah,
Right? Does that make sense? So I'm
yes,
reading
yes,
the
so
chat.
yes.
Chef Mofe says you have to be at peace within first before you can be peace for the world. So if I choose to swallow, if I choose to bite my tongue and swallow the pieces because I'm not speaking up
Mm,
about the piece that is being disturbed outwardly, what I am then effectively choosing inherently is to have the peace within my world
mm,
be disturbed for the
yeah,
sake of showing up as perhaps an incomplete definition of what peace is. So, in order to experience peace, we have to embrace violence. But that I think is a general rule of the duality that we live inside of, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that you can't know up without down. We live in a world of relativity. You
for
can't know
sure.
hot without cold. You can't, right? So
Yeah,
we have to
like
be able.
what is light without darkness, right?
Exactly,
Mm.
exactly. So, and I'm
No,
looking at
that's
Alex
fun.
says, so I can't blame my partner for my frustration anymore. You cannot. That's one of the greatest lessons I have unlearned. That is one of the greatest lessons I've unlearned that I cannot be responsible for somebody else's emotions. And
let
I
me
can't expect them to be responsible for mine, right?
let me do a what I didn't do. I think what I want to do, and I don't usually do this, but I think it's interesting to let the community know exactly, like the new community who maybe have not experienced you on your platforms or my platform,
Okay.
and they're meeting Dr. Joy for the first time,
Okay.
right? So what I think is interesting is I started using Chat GPT for like seeing what they think about even me, like what are they picking up about me. Like so, I looked up. I don't know if you ever asked them to write a bio on you in Chat GPT to see what they're picking up, right? So I asked about Dr. Joy, and this is what they wrote.
Oh
So
my God.
and
Okay.
Craig, it's cool because we're friends, so I don't ask that many questions. Like I
Okay.
obviously know about you and what you do, but
Right.
maybe sometimes not an extent or not all the history. So this is a short bio they wrote on their writing on Joy Madison. This is ChatGPT.
Okay.
Dr. Joi K. Madison is a transformational coach, speaker, and author committed to guiding individuals toward emotional healing, personal alignment, and purposeful living. With a doctorate in organized leadership and a specialized emphasis in mental health and family therapy, Dr. Joy merges academic rigor with soulful insight to create deeply impactful experiences for those she serves. It says her background in psychology, coupled with her clinical lens, allows her to support individuals and communities through life transitions, emotional growth, and generational healing. Whether in one-on-one coaching, team workshops, or building speaking engagements, Dr. Joy brings a unique blend of clinical expertise, spiritual wisdom, and cultural sensitivity to every space she enters. That's basically what the
Oh.
short version of what is that pretty much on point?
Yeah, wow, that's very interesting. I mean, there's a couple of things. I am not yet an author, unless you count.
Okay,
Well,
okay,
I mean, I've contributed to books and done things like that, but I've not yet published my own book. However, I
come on now.
appreciate the foreshadowing.
For sure, we're gonna talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I be needing people to know because they know I be talking to my friends on here, but sometimes I forget to do the whole. I just start talking like, okay, they know, right, right, but they don't all the time, and sometimes there's new
right,
visitors, new viewers. So I
yeah.
want to lay that groundwork down. I do
Okay.
want to ask you a question. Um, I do want to start it like this. So we talk about unlearning, right?
Yeah,
Um, what's one belief you had to unlearn in order to truly grow?
yeah, yep. And it's the one. It's the one that I just kind of shared as we were moving into this, and I want to acknowledge Tony in the chat. I appreciate you. She said that that
Oh,
bio
for
is
sure,
the way that she knows, and that's important to me more than what I would say in a bio or what Chat GPT would say in a bio. I appreciate that people who know me in real life would agree that that feels like who I am. So thank you for that.
for sure, for sure.
The
Um,
lesson that I've had to unlearn is what I shared just a moment ago, which is that I don't have to be responsible for other people's emotions and choices.
yeah.
I think that that is something that many of us learn indirectly, very very young, right? Like your parents do a thing and it's because they don't love me, because they don't care,
Yeah,
because they
yeah.
don't, right? And we begin to internalize other people's behaviors and choices as something having to do with us.
Hmm.
They did this because I am. They did this because they think this about me. They feel
Hmm.
this about me. Right? And instead of just being like they did this, the end.
Right.
That's a choice they made. Um and it impacted me in this way, and I have my own thoughts and feelings about that, and I'm making my own choices as a result of that. But what they did, what they said, how they
Hmm.
are, who they are is not about me, and I don't have to be responsible for trying to then shape shift and bend over backwards to be some version of myself that I think I'm supposed to be to get them to not do the thing that doesn't feel good or whatever, right? And so when I unlearned that it is my responsibility to manage other people's emotions and choices and behaviors, freed me from so much of the anguish and disappointment that I would often feel in relationships when I thought that I had to perform a certain thing to get what I want to be loved, I want to be accepted, I want to be whatever the thing is, and I have to perform a certain way. Because then if I'm doing the dance and you're not responding the way I want you to, now where does that leave me?
Mm,
Right.
right. Mm.
So that's the most important thing I think I have unlearned that has unlocked so much more in the on the path.
You know, it's here when you. It's like hearing you run those back, that example back, or the examples back. It's like you think about. I think about that now, like how I do that now. I think
Yeah.
about. I think about me and my wife, and with certain discussions we have, or certain things I take on personally, and the way you react a lot of times could make, and I'm guilty of this.
Hmm.
I've made spaces unsafe
Yeah.
because how I react to someone just telling me how they feel about something that
Hmm.
maybe I took on as okay, I'm to blame and I'm lashing out, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
When I become hard to speak to or hard to be, it's like you want transparency in your relationships, with whatever relationship, friendship, marriage, or
Hmm.
whatever, and but you become combative in a lot of sense with the way I didn't like what I heard, or I didn't react well to
Hmm.
how I'm interpreting something,
Yeah.
even though they could be clearly saying this isn't personal,
Right.
right?
Right. Right. Right.
And you still like nah, because of past whatever, right?
Hmm.
I'm in
Hmm.
therapy now, dealing with a lot of these things, and
Yes, I love that.
when you speak to it, it just reminds me of I see myself in a lot of these not just conversations and shows and things I watch or something I come across, and I'm like, that sounds like me.
Yeah.
I'm starting to recognize as
Yeah.
things are being pointed out, or I'm kind of like, I'm in therapy dealing with a lot of stuff, or I hear this conversation, and I'm thinking of like, well, I did that to my wife, or I do that. I'm,
Hmm.
I'm kind like that ain't cool. And because even hearing it, it's like you get to see yourself on the outside now. I get
Yeah.
to watch me, even
Yeah.
though I didn't just do it, but I'm watching Joy explain something that I
Hmm.
can see myself and my wife in.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, oh, that ain't cool. And then why would and now if I'm removing myself from it, why would I want to speak to somebody who's telling me to no, be transparent, let's be vulnerable, and then attack me when I do? It's almost like a setup. This isn't really a safe space. This is a trap,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, yeah, I gotta chill. I gotta learn how to not do that. How do I? Yeah, I gotta chill. Like I gotta, no, you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to figure out. I don't have the words, but
Yeah, I understand
that's
what
not
you
cool.
mean. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
understand
not
what
cool.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing you say that. It's a trigger, not a bad trigger. Just it triggers something. Oh, that's what I be doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, nah, that's not cool.
Right. Taking it personally, internalizing somebody else's stuff, making it about you. And then it becomes you oftentimes when we feel blamed or accused, even if that's not what the person's doing, but because we take it that way, we feel blamed or accused, or we feel like we missed the mark or fell short, and we internalize that, and that rubs us the wrong way because that challenges our sense of self, right? um, that I'm a good person, I'm a smart person, I'm a kind person, I'm a considerate person. And when you accuse me of being this or doing that because of how I show up made you feel away. And when you tell me how you feel, I make that about me. And now I feel like I need to defend myself against your
Yeah,
attack of my character when you told me how my behavior made you feel.
right,
Right.
right. Yeah,
Instead of being like, okay, I did a thing, you felt a thing that was not my intention, but I hear what you're saying. Now, where is the opportunity for us to connect here? Because what you're saying about what you feel does not necessarily a reflection of who I am, but because we are in whatever the nature of our relationship is, and I care about you and how you feel, when you bring this to me, I want to hear that. And then I want to work together and collaborate on how to correct
see, that's exactly what this is.
that.
You what I end up doing? I got so yeah, so we tell ourselves I'm this
Mhm.
good person and I'm nice and I'm
Yeah.
cool and I'm understanding, and then the one criticism,
Yep.
even if it is personal, like it's a critique about something you did, said, or something, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Which could be fair, which is fair if it's being honest and in respect. And then I take that and say, wait a minute, that don't sound like a good person,
Right.
or that sounds like somebody who's manipulative and all these things. You
Yeah.
took this one thing
Yeah.
that somebody who trusts and love you, like
Yeah.
you as a friend could be telling me, look, I don't like how you said that one thing. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what you mean?
Right.
Because now my whole livelihood is in threat.
Because I'm a great communicator and I know how to use my words and I'm respectful and I
Right.
deliver, right? And it's like I never said any of those types of
I took on all these things.
right.
And now it's like you may have said one thing and mentally I'm putting all these things on you. All these things in my head that I heard, I just threw them on you.
Okay. Listen to what you just said. This is so
Mm-hmm.
important because now we're going to talk about how it layers. I remember I said unlearning that
For sure.
opened the door for so much other work.
Mm-hmm.
So, because what happens is the story we tell ourselves, which is when you came to me and told me that something I did or said offended you, I told myself a story that means whatever, fill in the blank, that I'm a bad person. And I know I'm not a bad person. So now I got to prove to you that I'm
Yep.
not a bad person. I need to
Yep.
defend my character, my reputation, right? So the story that I told myself based on the filter through which your words or actions flowed into my mind and my own conscious understanding, that story then informs my behavior and my perception of the world. And as I'm doing that, now my behavior, because now I'm trying to defend myself, my character, my reputation, now my behavior perpetuates a space where you don't feel safe sharing what you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you withdraw, now it goes and see now they think I'm this. They think I'm that kind of person.
Right.
Now they're not talking to me. Now they're distant. Now they're doing this, which then causes you to reinforce and expand the original story, which then grows the behavior that's trying to push back against that narrative. And so goes
Mm-hmm.
the cycle that we're in.
And to add to that,
Mm-hmm.
we I got so far in my excuse my language shit. I'm
Mm-hmm.
so far in that I never dealt with what you said and what you dealing with.
Correct.
We never even dealt with that. So that's still a thing. I've
That's
made a whole new thing.
correct.
We're further away from clearing up any issues. You know what I mean? I'm laughing, but it's like, nigga,
That's real. That's
that's
real.
what happened, right? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You make me think about this conversation I had with my so I do this is the shade room. This is the shade room. Lord have mercy. It's never the shade room.
Let's do
This
that.
is the this never the shade room. This is the safe room where I do one-on-one conversation with really, really cool people. And I
Mhm.
want to have real, insightful conversations about a bunch of things. And I
Yes.
have the safe house where I have a panel of people, which I would love to have you on the safe house one day also when I have the panel of my brothers and good sisters on there. It'll be a really great conversation, really opening conversation about just a bunch of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, um, I was on doing a safe house with some of my guys, and I was one of my guys made me think about something that I do, and I didn't realize I do it until he's kind of spoke on this thing, and I was like, wait a minute. And so I asked the question. I just realized I do this thing where I always feel like I'm misunderstood, right? There's this thing where I always feel like I'm misunderstood. I could be talking to Joy about something or my wife about something or whatever, and I'm like, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. Like,
Mhm.
no, this is what I mean. This, and then you like, well, I mean, no, that's whatever. You respond in a way where I didn't, for lack of better terms, like it,
Okay.
right? So, so I start to feel misunderstood. But what's actually happening is I don't like how you're responding. So you can't understand what I'm saying because who would respond to what I just said like that? Right?
Mm.
Because I don't think it's wrong what I'm saying or it's offensive or whatever case may be.
Mhm.
If you think it's offensive, oh, you could not have heard me then. You could not have understood me.
Oh.
And now I'm fighting from a space of, see, that's why I don't be talking or telling, that's why I don't tell my stuff or whatever, because I'm so misunderstood. You create this box or this prison of yourself of
Yeah.
like, nobody understands me. When you're like, no, I clearly heard you. You clearly said this, and
Right.
I just feel like this about it.
Right.
That's it. And I'm like, no, that's not, you must don't get, never mind. Then I go into shutdown mode, right?
Yeah.
And now, mind you, we're all in this panel, and none of us are professional
Mm.
psychiatrists or anything, right? And
Mhm.
we're very well on saying like, yo, I'm not professional, but in my opinion, that makes me think of this,
Yeah.
right? And there's a, it was almost like a little, not self-diagnosing thing, but a
Mhm.
word came up. I forgot the word. I'll find the word. It's called ambient something.
Ambivalence.
What is it?
Ambivalence.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't that. I'm gonna find the word though.
Okay.
And it deals with people who do this. They feel like they're misunderstood, and because the way you're responding doesn't align with how what they're saying, what they mean by what they're saying. And so
Mhm.
now it turns into an attack or a defense or something like that.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
now you're starting from a place of like chaos in that moment, right?
Mhm.
And I realized that because my wife would always say, "No, I hear you. I clearly hear you. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But this," and I'm like, "No, you don't get it." And so now she's looking at me like, "That's why I don't even like talking to you, like because you, I get it. I'm not crazy. I'm
Right.
intelligent. You're an intelligent woman. I get what you're saying. But if you don't like it or it doesn't align with how you feel about it, then you go into defense mode." And it just makes me think about how the thing what I'm trying to get to the point is we internally make things real. I'm a creative and I'm a writer at heart.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, Joy, you are the stuff that I create in my head just
Mm-hmm.
when I'm just being creative is insane, let
Right.
alone if I'm talking to somebody about something. Right? The things I create up here, I gotta tell myself that's not real.
Yeah. Slow
It's
down, Turbo.
slow
Because
down, bro.
here, how did we get there?
How do we
How did
get
we
there?
get there?
Right?
Listen, ask me how I know, because I
And,
my mind.
right? So I got to check myself in the moment of like, first, let's start from the basis of they're not trying to attack you. You're not being attacked. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? You're
that's
not being attacked.
yeah,
It
that's
is. It's especially when you have certain kind of relationships with you. You start to feel like you're talking to an op. This is not an op. I'm talking to Joy. If Joy didn't like some, she's well in her right to say she didn't like something Terrence said,
yeah,
or let me correct you. It's not that I don't like it. Maybe with my years of experience in dealing with this stuff,
yeah.
my doctorate and all these things, there's something I might know about this that you don't, right?
Possibly. I don't, yeah,
Possibly, right? It's probably a thing, right?
it could
So
be.
the fact that I'm fighting it, it's like sometimes ego. Sometimes ego plays a part, and you get to
Yeah,
yeah, you deal with that, and it's. I see myself in a lot of these spaces, I started doing therapy so I can deal with a lot of my stuff of
yeah,
knowing where it comes from and how do I unlearn a lot of these things, and
yeah. Because this is. I want to propose another perspective and see if it lands for you. Hey, Austin, good to hear from you. Um, so I want to validate that when we encounter something that is contrary to what we believe or hold as truth, it is not uncommon to resist or even reject that thing. Like, no, right? Like that is quite natural. It is how many species have survived through over the ages to go like that is different. Let me see if it's safe over there, right? Like, and until I determine that it is, no, right? Like
Mhm.
that's normal. And what I mean by normal is typical, common, expected, right? It's part
Right.
of how we're wired for survival is to scan for opportunities and threats. And when something comes up as different from us, if we perceive that to be a threat in any capacity, we're going to resist or reject that thing. So that's what's happening, and it turns into confrontation, conflict, etc.
Mhm.
where the opportunity is inside of that, and I love what you're saying, which is to kind of reframe it and go like, hold on, this is not the enemy, I'm not being attacked, I don't have to respond in this way, like what's actually happening here. That's a great way to ground yourself in the reality of the moment, as opposed to being overcome by the feelings of like, oh no, attack because you're different, right? And so part of that is exposure to new and different things, so that we begin to develop a trust in ourselves to navigate those spaces, so that when I encounter something or someone that is different from me, it doesn't automatically feel like a threat.
Right.
Because even if you are different, I trust myself to navigate this in a way that is still safe for us,
Yeah.
right? And so a lot of times when we grow up in certain environments or have certain experiences and we're not exposed to the broader world around us and the ways of thinking and being and all of that, and somebody shows us something different, it can feel like, no, and we reject or resist. And the more we can say, huh, wait a minute, maybe, and get curious and be
Yeah.
open, which again requires us to feel safe to do that, right? Which won't always be the case. It will not always be the case that you can assess for safety quick enough to be open to somebody's opposing or contrary thought, opinion,
Hmm.
or way of being. It will not always feel safe for you to do that. But it is important to develop a practice whereby you can do a quick assessment on the spot to determine whether or not openness and curiosity is an appropriate
Right.
response to the moment when you're met with something that is different from how you perceived a thing in the world or yourself or whatever, right? And so that's the skill set, that's the journey. It's not just being like, I'm wrong for this. It's being like, what is my response? Why do I respond this way? Why do I get defensive when somebody's different from me? People have a right to be different and think
For
differently and
sure.
have a different opinion. Like that's a thing that I intellectually understand, but emotionally I get triggered by it, and that causes me to show up more aggressively and to be defensive because I'm feeling attacked. What's that about?
Yeah.
Right? And that's
Yeah.
what like a therapeutic process would help you unravel and pull the string on, like that. And what kind of is the impetus for that is what I hear you saying, which is like, that's not cool. What you're saying is, if I believe myself to be a loving, supportive husband who can communicate and create a space for his wife to feel heard and valued and all of the things and respected in her intellect and her choices, if that's the kind of person I believe I am, but the way I'm behaving is not
Yeah.
indicative of that, I now, you just had an encounter with yourself that said, oh no, I need to go on a journey to unlearn the patterns and behaviors that I've been engaging in, to try something different that feels more aligned with who I believe I actually am in this role of husband, which, by the way, you're learning that now because you just got to husband.
For sure.
Right? Like,
Right. For
you didn't
sure.
know how to be a husband to Chaz before you became a husband to Chaz.
Right. 100%.
So it is these kinds of relationships, which is why I always say relationships are our mirrors. It is these kinds of interactions that show us parts of ourselves that we would not have otherwise seen, and then
Yeah.
say, hey, now what you gonna do about it?
Yes.
What you gonna do about
Yes.
that? Because you see how you acting? Is that what you
Hmm.
want to be? If it's not, you got some work to
Right. Wow.
do, right?
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
That's real. It's a mirror.
Mhm.
And you have to be open to seeing it. And what I mean by that is sometimes is that, when you deal with someone and you're able to reflect or process or deal with what something you deal with, whether it's in a moment or after,
Mhm.
you know, I use an example of how, say if it's me and my wife and we get into something, like the minute I separate from her, I miss her, and then I'm over it. Not over it technically. What I mean by that is I don't want to be mad or upset no more. I don't want to feel separated. I don't want to feel separated.
Yeah.
So in that moment though of letting the anger out, confusion out, whatever that all these feelings these things are, then clarity sets in. It's like, okay, what happened? And then I'm going through what happened in my head. I'm like, yeah, nah, yeah,
Yes.
okay, I didn't like how she said that, but I didn't have to respond that way.
Right.
And I didn't have to, and then you come back and like, I apologize for the, or whatever, all these things.
Yeah.
And, but I'm trying to get to the point where, but I know that we do these, and as in me, we do these things. Um, um, I want to get to a point where, and I know it's a journey and it's work, right? It's continuous work. And I want to get to a place where I check that in a moment. Like I don't react originally in the space when it's going down. Like I don't react in that kind of way. I
Right.
don't go into any of my friendships, my real friends, my covenant or my wife, my home, my spaces. Um, Back to the attack thing where these aren't people that would do that or that are doing that or want to do me harm or bring me harm. These are people that I like. It should be grace. You should move in grace in a space where,
Mhm.
wait a minute, let me. No, I have to, and sometimes learn how to turn this off. Right. That's what I try to do. And when I say turn this off, I don't mean like go blank. I mean like
I know what
meditate and stuff. Learn how to turn the noise down. Right.
you.
Um, and with this conversation, I'm kind of like, it's funny. I feel like this conversation turned into my therapy session, but this conversation it's just eye opening for me, and I want to be in the moment with dealing with like because I could just ask questions, but in
Mhm.
the moment as you're speaking, I see myself in a lot of this, and I
Mhm.
like to deal with it and say what I'm going through and how I'm feeling about something. Because also, not only I'm learning about myself in certain ways to maybe a different perspective of how to deal with certain things. I feel like
Mhm.
people, the lookers or viewers, are learning something about maybe
Absolutely.
themselves in a way. Like we sometimes we look at life and we see ourselves in a lot of different
Uh, yeah.
right, right,
Yes. If you're paying attention, absolutely that's what's happening for sure. I want to acknowledge what LaShonda's saying in the chat, which is you have to learn to consider what your mate be feeling in those moments. Your mate might be feeling in those moments. And this is hard. Now, let me say this,
yeah,
because you're specifically talking about it in the context of your marriage. And this is especially true for heteronormative marriages, right? A man,
mm,
a woman, a male, and a female marrying together.
mm,
And I want to talk about this in particular. I think it's true across all relationships, friendships, business, all that. But I think it's especially true in our intimate partnerships and particularly true in intimate partnerships between males and females. And here's why. When we think about the conditioning of men, you don't necessarily have permission throughout life to develop close, emotionally intimate relationships with a bunch of folks. That's usually
yeah,
reserved for your romantic partnerships.
mm,
So you don't have a lot of practice doing that. And so when the stuff shows up in your intimate partnership and the person who is closest to you in all the ways starts to see you most fully and starts to get into those blind spots that you've been able to block and hide from other people who maybe are not as close to you, who don't see
mm,
you in your most vulnerable, raw state of being. When that person comes in and they're like, hey, look at that, and you're seeing that part of you for the first time,
yeah,
and it's a difficult thing to see and accept about yourself, and the person you love the most is seeing it at the same time, so you didn't even get to really decide like how you were going to dress it up and make it look cute. So you're feeling super out, just out here and open, and you don't have the practice in the context of emotionally intimate relationships for how to respond to what's coming up for you in that moment.
mm,
So this is partly
mm,
why when we talk about the the context and the institution of marriage being what it is, in large part it's that's the thing that makes it so different from all your other relationships, is that it's going to see you in it's going to see you, and then you're going to see you in ways that you never have. And a lot of the stuff you're going to see is going to be things that you purposely didn't see because you didn't want to see it.
right,
And a lot of it is going to be stuff that you never had to see because nobody was you know what I'm saying?
yeah, for
I
sure,
remember I used to, when I was in high school, and you know this,
mm,
I used to pluck my eyebrows to within an inch of their lives. I'm talking about nothing, okay? And the reason why I realized is that when I would do it, what I would do is I would get close to the mirror with a magnifying mirror and a light, and I would be with the tweezers. So I'm trying to get every single little hair that looks like it's out of place. And then by the time I back up from the mirror, when I think the job is done, I'm gonna eyebrows.
Right.
They're gone. Because I've
Right.
tried to get every hair that looks out of place.
Mm-hmm.
The relationship with your partner, they're in your face with a mirror and a magnifying glass and a light shining everything on all the parts of you. And it can feel like you're being plucked to within an inch of your life in
Mm.
real time. And
Wow.
that is hard because then it challenges the things that you thought to be true about yourself, about the world, about how things work, about whatever ideas you might have come into the marriage thinking it was supposed to be, and then it's not that, and then that you got to dismantle that and rebuild the reality of what's actually present. Like so much is happening that if you cannot withstand the emotional ebbs and flows of that, it will crack you in half.
Wow.
That's just what it is. And that's the nature of it. That doesn't mean you're
Wow.
failing. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. That's literally the nature of that relationship. It's supposed to do that.
That makes me think of. I actually have a question written down. This makes me think of this because people, especially the narrative of mental health, start coming up, and then the narratives about relationships back and forth on the internet and social media, and they often talk about emotional intelligence, right?
Mhm, mhm,
How could someone, in your opinion, or
mhm.
in your professional opinion, how
Sure.
could someone start building theirs from scratch?
Oh, easy peasy. The cornerstone is self awareness, which is again why that's the foundation of my work. You got to be able, so many people don't have the language for how to describe what they feel. They just don't have it.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm happy or sad or mad. You might get scared if somebody is vulnerable enough to tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
We don't got a whole lot after that. When you get into the nuance of the human experience, especially as it reveals itself through our relationships, and most particularly our intimate relationships, um, when you don't feel like you can even express what is happening, that can feel incredibly disempowering,
What?
right? When I don't, so being able to, so you said it earlier, when you find yourself in the head spin of being triggered and overwhelmed and all the things, the first step is being able to regulate yourself, get
Yeah.
yourself calm, grounded in the reality of I'm treating you like you the ops, but you're not. I know you're saying the thing that's true because you love me enough not to lie to me. And even
That.
though that truth is hard, I know you and I trust what we have. So this what I'm feeling right now when I want to go on the rampage, that ain't
Mm-hmm.
even it. That's not appropriate nor is it necessary for this moment. So how do I bring myself down first and foremost and be able to regulate? Notice how I show up when I'm triggered. Does the heart rate go up? Do I become defensive and distant?
Mm-hmm.
Do the fists clench up? Do I go on attack and yell? Do I become physically violent? What do I do? Do I become manipulative? Do I withhold intimacy? What do I do when I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling some type of way about
Yeah.
what's happening? I need to first be aware of the signals that are within me that something is off.
Wow.
That's the first step. Because then, going back to what I said in the beginning, once I know what's going on with me, then I can choose what to do about it. So, emotional intelligence is literally your ability to acknowledge, name, and manage your own emotions. What am I feeling right now? What happened? How did we get here? And then how do I want to respond to this? That's what emotional intelligence is. But it starts with checking in with, ooh, I know this is how I get when I'm triggered,
Right.
or when I'm
Yeah.
hungry, or when I'm tired, or when I'm feeling disrespected, or I'm feeling ignored, when I'm feeling unappreciated, when I'm whatever I'm feeling, I know I start to think like this. I start to make these kinds of assumptions. I start to have this inner narrative about you, and that's why you always such and such. Because you, yeah, when you start doing that
Yeah. Yeah.
about your partner, or about your
Hmm.
best friend, or about your business partner, your coworker, or whoever, you start running this story that's not helpful, or you start engaging in behavior that's not helpful, when you notice that about yourself, that's when you got to start going, oh, what's going on here? Right? I
Yep.
always tell people, when you're triggered, the tendency is to point the finger, but the invitation is to look in the mirror.
100%.
What's going on here? Why am I responding like that? Why am I feeling like that? Why do I think, why would I even think that that's what they was trying to do? What's going on with me right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Focus on yourself. And then you say, okay, well, yeah, this, that, however you contextualize it, they said this, that felt that. Oh, I know that that's my soft spot. I'm sensitive about that. So that's that. Or I also know I might have just heard it a little bit more sensitively because right now I'm also going through this other thing. Like now
Yeah.
you're contextualizing everything, and you're zooming out, is what I like to call it, right? You cannot ever take a small snippet of something and then use that to judge an entire situation, especially if you're talking about a long-term relationship where you got more than this moment to measure the worthiness of this person and what
Exactly.
you have,
Yeah.
right? More than this moment. So I can't use this moment as an excuse to blow that all up. I have to develop a practice where I can zoom out and say, what's really good
Hmm.
right now?
Mm.
Then, okay, based on how I feel and my understanding of what led to that and what I would like to see happen moving forward, how do I get to adapt and adjust? And then what's my ask? What do I need from my partner? And then when I bring my need to my partner, I'm naming it as my need, not the thing you did, you always do, you never do, you need to do.
Right. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
you know, when you said this, I felt this. And what I really need is to feel this right now. How can we create that? When you talk to me like that, I felt like you just didn't, I felt so disregarded. And I don't think that you're just trying to disregard me. I know that you're going through whatever the things are, but
Hmm.
that I can't, that's not going to work for me. Because then when I feel disregarded, it makes me want to disengage. And that's not going to be good for us.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So now because now what I'm doing is I'm refocusing on the vision that we have for our partnership. I'm
Oh,
not
you just make
making you the bad guy.
you just made me think of something.
Yeah.
Uh, you okay? Okay. You and I had a conversation some maybe a couple years back
Okay.
about what is you weren't speaking to me specifically. You were speaking about a situation,
Okay.
and you asked the question, "What does marriage look like for you?" Right.
Hmm.
So when you said what you just said about the vision,
Yeah.
a lot of times where there's a problem is two people sometimes don't have a vision for themselves. Sometimes they just oh we need to I like you you like me we need to be together
Yeah.
because that's what history says that happens when you like somebody. You're supposed to go with them and then be
Sure.
together, and then
Sure.
after a while we're supposed to get married, right?
Hmm.
And instead of asking all the important questions in the middle of that
Hmm.
to even to even find out or do any kind of research about is this person a person you guys should be. You know what I mean? Like what I'm trying to say, like, a lot of people don't have vision for themselves. They
Yeah.
just get together and then now they're on a freestyle mission on how to make it work.
Yes.
And neither one of us know where we here's the thing. In the beginning, if you aren't having these conversations,
Hmm.
neither one of us know where neither one of us want to go or the
Correct.
idea we have for this, right? And then we're working from a space of like just figured it out, but with no destination. So what tends to happen is you can feel like maybe you're not going nowhere. And essentially, maybe that could be true, but also because you guys have two different destinations.
Yeah.
You haven't even talked about it. So anyway, that made me think about that when you said your vision.
Yeah.
And I thought about, well, a lot of people don't even have a vision.
Correct.
So now they're dealing with a couple of different things.
Yes. And that's
That's
usually what will come up in my experience when I'm working with couples. And I
mhm,
think I've shared this with you before. I'm not sure if it was on a public platform, but um, one of the questions that I would often ask my couples in the beginning of our time together, like whenever they begin
mhm,
seeing me, I would say, uh, "Why do you want to be married?" And I've only had one couple be
mhm.
able to answer that question outside of, oh, because we love each other, or because we've been
Right.
together 5 years and it's
Yeah.
time, or whatever the things are, right? I mean, like,
Mhm,
really be able to answer that question with any level of clarity. And that couple was an older couple. They were both on their second marriage. So they had had some lived experience around
oh
what
wow, okay.
were able to say, like, oh, if I'm going to do this again, it's got to be for these reasons, right?
Mhm,
So, um, the reason why that's an important question is because of exactly what you just said, which is that a lot of folks move into this massive commitment with minimal clarity of why that's even the next step, right? Like, why does that feel? Because to your point, you think because you've been together a certain amount of time, it's just the natural next step. Like, that's
right.
not, and that's also why a lot of people will be boyfriend and girlfriend, however, 10 years and then get married in 6 months. They like, nope, not going to be me, right? I'm out of here. Um, and it's often because we bring our ideas into something without sharing them or disclosing them. And
Mhm,
that's because we have shared language, but we don't always have shared understanding.
mm,
Right? Like, you said you wanted to be married. I also want to be married. So when you asked me, naturally I said yes. But neither one of us talked about why marriage feels like the right move for our
yep.
lives and what marriage looks like in our lives, right? And so we just said we wanted the same thing, and we assumed that because we were using the same language, we had the same understanding of what that thing is. And that's not always the case, which is why
Right.
those conversations are important. It is important to say, like, why do I want a husband? Why do I want a wife? What role would they play in the scope of who I know myself to be and the vision that I have for my life? What role does a partnership, a marriage partnership play? Which then helps me think about when I'm dating around whether or not the options I have, which ones make the most sense, because now I'm dating from a place of I'm clear about who I am. I'm clear about the vision that I have for my life, and I'm clear about the values that I need my partner to have so that we can feel aligned, right?
Yeah.
Um, and we can also co-create this vision, not because this is what I want to do, are you on board, right?
Right. Right.
But because I think we talk about this before, the term, the go together,
Yes, for sure.
the
Yes.
term go together, how it came to me one day. I was like, is that what that means?
Not publicly though. We talked about
Okay.
it, but we haven't talked about it publicly.
So I was minding my business one day, and I don't know about y'all, but I be talking to myself. I do, especially in the mirror. Ooh,
For
child, we,
sure.
we be talking. And so I think I was like doing my skincare routine or something. And I was having this conversation with myself, and it came up that, like, I'm not interested in dragging someone along with me, right? Like, you know what I got going on, moving another
Mhm.
country, all the things, right? I'm not interested in dragging someone along with me. Super open to, oh, you have a similar vision, you're open to this thing, this aligns with what you see for your life. Want to go together? We go together.
Mm,
Oh, I'm not dragging you with me. I'm not going along with you. We are going together because I had a clear vision for my life. You had a clear vision for your life. We met up somewhere, some way along the path, and we decided to go towards this vision together.
together. So essentially, a lot of people aren't actually going together. Wow. Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So that was the day and I was just like, oh, is that what that meant? Like, in terms of, because when we think about language again and the importance of that, and the cultural influence and impact
Mhm.
of that, and the times when we would say that, and where our parents would say that, when courtship was a thing, when there was a thing that said, hey, I have a vision for my life. I am now ready to include a partner in that. We are
Mhm.
engaged in a courtship to see whether or not this is the partnership that makes sense for that. And now we go together. If we
Wow.
don't have that process and we're not contextualize our dating experiences in that context, then the language starts to falter and have less significance. Does that make sense?
Yes. And what I hear from that is, or what I see
Hmm.
is where it can be a train wreck in many situations. Because if we have no intentional, if we're not technically going together,
Right.
but we decided to hook up, connect, whatever you call it, if you're
Hmm.
not going together, whatever you call it,
Right. Right.
and extensive dating or whatever the case, whatever
Right.
exclusive dating, whatever. Um, it just leaves I'm not going to say this exclusively, but what I'm thinking is it leaves the door open for just okay, I would say high risk, like toxic situations,
Confusion.
right?
Yeah.
Confusion and because why would you, if there's no goal or like you said, a destination or idea of this is what luck wants,
Right.
and oh, you would like that too, or what you and I do can essentially are going the same direction to get this to do this thing. Okay, cool. But if I don't know what I want, you don't know what you want, and we're just like, oh, I like you, and then we're trying to figure out. Here's the thing: we're trying to figure out so much just dating, right? I'm trying to figure. First of all,
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out who I am as a person,
Mhm.
right? And I'm sure she's doing that on the other side, or whoever I was in the past with, and then we're learning life together,
Mhm.
and then and one thing you do learn with being in relationships is, especially with me being married, is that the woman you marry is not going to be the woman you die with, so vice versa, right?
Mhm.
So because people are forever growing. Me and my
Oh,
wife was talking yesterday.
yeah.
I was asking basic questions that I never asked before because we were just together. So
Yeah.
you don't do the simple question, what's your favorite color? What's your mom's brother name? What you know what I mean? You don't, because
Right.
you just right. You
Right.
if you know the immediate family and you ask about her ex boyfriends and then whatever. But
Right.
I was talking to her about like a bunch of things. Well, what was your dad like, and how was he? And then okay, what was it like growing up in Dallas? Oh, you moved out here first, and then all these things. So I'm like learning my wife all
Yeah.
over again, and I've been knowing my wife for 15 years.
Yeah.
I'm learning her. I learned something new yesterday.
Mhm.
So that's a great way to look, because I mean, we talked about the going together thing, but publicly we didn't talk about it. But I think it's interesting and awesome. I think if we knew that
Yeah.
from the gate,
Mhm.
what going together actually represented,
Mhm.
then I think it would save a lot of us from a lot of like trauma, toxicity, a bunch of bad ideas coming together.
Well, yeah, I
And
mean,
then, you know,
and that's true across the board, across every domain of our lives, right? The more clarity you have,
yeah,
the more grounded you are in your decision making. You have a much more you can filter out things that don't align or make sense or reflect the truth or the reality that you want to sort of see in your life. Like when you don't have that, that's true across any you if my fitness goals, if I don't go in here and I'm not clear about what my fitness and health goals are, and I'm just
yeah,
going in here with all these machines and just doing whatever, we're going to make some progress just because I'm moving my body and I'm doing things, but I'm not going to necessarily be able to, train for that marathon or do, whatever the goal is, right? Like
yeah,
I'm not going to, if I don't have a clear path or destination in mind, which let me also say doesn't mean you cannot change or pivot, because you will
right,
often have to do that, but it just means that if I don't have from the start some level of clarity about where I want to end up, so that as I'm making choices and decisions along the way, I can measure that against whether or not that makes sense. If I'm living in LA and I'm saying I want to go to the beach, but I'm driving east, I won't, unless I'm clear that the beach is
right,
west and I'm in LA,
right, right,
I'm gonna be driving east forever. I'm gonna eventually hit a beach, but it's gonna
right,
be a minute, right? It's gonna be a
right,
minute. So when I get in my car, I need to know I'm going to the beach, which inevitably the first thing is, well, now I know I need to go west. Now,
Yeah.
whether or not I'm going west on the streets, on the freeway, on the
Mm.
whatever, all those things can change. And then maybe I'm going away and I was going to go that way, but then I decided
Yeah.
to go, whatever. Point is, without that clarity in the beginning, I don't even know step one that I should be at least going west, right?
Mm.
Without that level of clarity in the beginning of entering a relationship, if you don't know step one and they don't have a clue about step one and y'all just stepping, doesn't mean it can't work. It just means the likelihood that you're going to encounter confusion and chaos and a whole bunch of other madness along the way is going to be increased because you're going to experience that even with the clarity. That's just life.
Right.
But
Right.
when you don't have the clarity, you're almost inviting that stuff in, right? Because now
For
we're talking
sure.
about if I don't have that clarity, it's likely because I haven't done the work of understanding who I am and what I've been
Mm.
through and how that impacts me today. And if I
Yeah.
haven't done that work, so I don't have clarity about where I'm going, I don't have a whole lot of clarity about who I am because I haven't done the work of really looking at where I've been. And then you and I get together and we both in that boat. Where are we going?
Mm.
What are we doing? How are we confused when we keep bumping heads? How? Y'all are
Yeah.
both in the dark. Yes, you're going to keep bumping into yourselves, each other, and everything else that's in this room.
For sure.
Absolutely, because you're navigating in the complete and utter darkness.
You this make me think of uh before I was married, before me and my wife was even together.
Hmm.
Out here single, rapping, living life as a single man would do in LA as a rapper, right?
Okay.
Whatever
Well,
that means, right?
from just
So yeah, that's it, right? So
whatever picture popped up in your mind as the
whatever
listener,
it is, right? Go with
enjoy.
that, keep moving, right? So, but I thought about how uh, having a destination or not having a destination could be a bad and good thing. I mean, having a destination
Mhm.
and moving in the space of knowing what you want to do, how you want to move, and how y'all want to move together. That's a better better edge to have in a quote unquote whatever successful relationship is.
Yes.
Not having it, it could be a
Yeah.
train wreck, could be, right?
Could
And
be.
then I thought about like, man, what does trauma bonding look like in that space?
Hmm.
And because I thought about how a young lady and I were talking and having dealings with one another, and for reasons I won't say here, we weren't supposed to be messing around,
Right.
right? But we started messing around,
Yeah.
and we messed around for a while, very
Hmm.
long time, and then it got deep for me, for sure. For her also, it
Hmm.
got deep. It got deep to L word was brought up and all kinds of stuff, right?
Hmm.
And I remember that in the beginning of that, we knew both of us were in a very dark season of our lives, and
Hmm.
we connected on that,
Yeah.
and then we shared experiences,
Yeah.
and in that moment, we were there for each other. We
Hmm.
comforted one another. We were there when it seemed like everybody else just kind of left us for dead. We had each other,
Yeah.
right? And something grew from that. Then physical and everything happened, right? So we're moving from that space, and we think now
Hmm.
we think feelings are happening and things are going on. So when it got to a point, it was me that tried to take it out of privacy into like I don't care, let's just be together, right?
Okay. Hmm.
And then I was reminded from her like we can't. Like
Hmm.
as much as I would love for that to happen, that's not a good idea. And also, you have to realize this hurt with the clarity how this even happened, right? You got to realize what we were doing, and that's not really smart for the people around,
Right.
right? And I was hurt, but then I was like, damn, like I was so caught up in someone holding me down and being there for me and talking to me and all these things. But we bonded in trauma. Like it was like finding a friend that you're going to hell with,
Hmm.
or going through hell with. I'm sorry,
Hmm.
going through hell with, and then everything seems like a good idea when you guys are holding each other down in that space.
Sure.
But what happens is when you get out of that space
Mm.
of being in that dark season and you're out and things going well and everything, then it's like moment of clarity happens, and you
Mhm.
like, wait a minute, what am I doing here?
Mm.
Right? And that's what happened with us.
Okay.
Um, I tried to push through it, and she was like, wait a minute, what are we doing here? We
Yeah.
weren't supposed to be here. And she was
Mm.
1000% correct. But
Mm.
I brought that up to say,
Mhm.
the destination at the time for me was in trauma. Let's hold each other down forever. We go nobody messing with nobody's being there for us. So we just gonna do this thing by ourselves and move forward,
Mm.
right? But that
Mhm.
wasn't a realistic destination. That's a bad season.
Well,
And me,
so this is important because when you say no one's going to hold us down, it's me and you forever, and you say let's just do this together, the question that I think could have
mhm,
helped in that moment is what is the this that we're doing together?
that's that's the for that right there. It's what she was saying.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
So, so I understood
what is
that.
the
Now, when I
this?
was saying it, I'm just talking. I'm freestyling because I'm trying to save something that we don't even supposed to be in,
Right.
right? And then
Mm.
the moment of clarity was like, "What are we doing?
Yeah.
We don't even supposed to be doing this." And in a moment of like, "Damn, she right," but I'm
Mm.
already here. My
Right.
heart's in it,
Right.
right? So it's like, oh shit, like she's right. I love her, but she's also a friend.
Right.
And we and once she said that, I was like, "Yeah, we can."
Yeah.
After like going through the heartbreak and all the stuff of it. But
Right. Right.
she was right. And to your point, yes, that was the problem. I didn't know what this was. I didn't know
Yeah.
where this is. I didn't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I was just like, you held me down, so it must be right. We
Yeah.
must be meant for each other.
Yeah.
It must be perfect.
Right.
But it wasn't. It was
Right.
perfect. It was perfect as friends. Sometimes you may you may cross the line you're not supposed to cross because
Right.
of whatever thing in life happens, right?
Right.
But it just made me think about that of having a destination or not having a destination, and then when you're moving in trauma, how that could have been a train wreck. Also,
Mhm.
we had fun, had a great time. Nobody knows.
Right.
Nobody knows who the other person was. They'll never know.
Right.
But if we pushed past it, I see it now as I've cleared it out of my mind. I see it being a horrible train wreck down the line somewhere. And I'm just like, I'm glad that she kind of like had that moment of clarity to be like, nah, like I love you, but nah, this ain't what we're supposed to do. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And I never, but even thinking about that, the go together thing,
Yeah.
um, about what that means. It's like LaShonda said, like it will save a lot of us from so much pain
Yeah.
and so much confusion, like we said earlier, confusion. If we just had that kind of idea moving in that space,
Yeah.
we talked about one time how a couple, which we're not gonna name or anything, but what we're talking about was a couple with their idea of marriage was they found out after getting married that he wanted his wife to stay home and be a housewife.
Oh,
She
yes.
was like, I'm not a housewife. I work and I do. They
Right.
grew up very different and never had these conversations.
Mhm.
And then now you're married, and now you're like, well, who gonna bend or who gonna break? Like kind of that kind of thing.
Right.
And then it's like not all bad, but it's like, but now you're here now. What do you do with that? You
And
know?
that's the trap of going into a marriage with an idea or expectation of who your partner is supposed to be for you, as
Oh
opposed to what
yeah,
it is that you're going to do together, right?
yeah,
What we're going to do, what we're here to create, the vision that we have, and how we're each contributing to that is a very different intention and a very different driver for how you show up versus I'm getting into this because of what I think you're supposed to be to me once you say yes, right?
mm,
Like I remember dating someone who would often speak about how, for him, marriage was like having somebody to take care of you and be there with you in those older years, which I don't necessarily feel any type of way about that,
mm,
except that I was watching him have terrible habits, terrible eating habits, terrible
right,
like just terrible things. And I'm
right.
thinking to myself, you think that you're
Yeah,
gonna tell me that your idea of a wife is somebody who's going to take care of you and be there for you in those elder years, and I'm going to watch you walk down a slow ramp to death
right.
today, starting now, and say yes to that? Not that
Yeah,
I
right,
wouldn't be there, not that I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if your idea of this is who I'm supposed to be to you is the person who's going to take care of you in your elder years and your latter years, and you're setting me up right now to have the hardest time
Right.
doing that.
Yeah.
What are we actually talking about? You're not thinking about what you want to build with somebody. You're thinking about what you want to extract from somebody when you're in your time of need. And then you're
Mm.
not even doing your part to help them not have to struggle because you want to act a fool at the table.
Wow.
And so I'm thinking to myself, because I'm clear about the life I want to live, you talk about you want to marry me, sir, it's a no. I'm gonna tell
Yeah.
you the street
That's
today. It's a no
wow.
because we don't even have the same vision. Again, you're talking about what you want to extract from your partner, and I'm not hearing you talk about what you want to build with them.
Right.
So I can't say yes to that. No matter how much I like you now, how fun it is, how cute you are, I can't say yes to that for the rest of my
Right.
life because we're not even talking about the same thing.
Not at all.
Not in the least bit.
No, not at all. Wow. How do you how many times are we I'm generalizing people here, and I'm not asking for exact numbers, obviously, but
Okay.
in your mind or opinion, or just lived experiences, talking to couples, dealing with life yourself and friends and stuff. How
Hmm.
many times are we trying, or do we have an idea of a partner,
Hmm.
and then the people we date, we're trying to shove that idea or shove that partner into that idea that we have of the person we want, right? Instead of dealing with the person we have, or you understand what I'm trying. Like we have an idea of
Hmm.
you have an idea of a wife or a husband, and then you want your man or a husband or wife to be like this, and then you start dating a person, and then they may not be like that, but you're trying to turn that into your idea that
Yes.
you've already had of this perfect person you had.
Yeah.
I think uh, is it fair to say humans do that a lot? Is that a thing where we?
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's called
Yeah,
projection.
right, right.
That's what it is. I am
What is
projecting.
that about?
I'm projecting onto you my idea and
Yeah,
my ideal, right? I have an idea,
yeah.
and that idea is my ideal situation. And I'm projecting that onto you because if you say this is going back to when I don't make myself responsible for your feelings and
Mm-hmm.
choices, that means I don't get to make you responsible for my feelings and choices. So what's happening is we are in this. I have feelings for you. I want it to be this. And if you say you love me, then you will do it like this because that's what I require.
Mm. Wow.
And I need you to prove that you love me by conceding to that.
By doing these things, becoming this kind of like a robot of a person, maybe like
Performing my
within.
understanding of who you're
Right.
supposed to be to me. Yeah. Yeah. As opposed to accepting that you are who you are, there's inherent value in that. And when I allow you the space to be exactly who you are, I'm going to get the magic of things I could have never imagined because my understanding was a very limited scope. And you
Yeah.
bring such a broad and nuanced humanity to that that if I try to stuff you inside of my narrow understanding, I'm missing out on
Mhm.
the magic of what you really have and who you truly are.
Right.
And the opportunity to
Wow.
nurture that and to grow from that and to grow with that, right? Like that's what I'm robbing myself of when I try to make you fit into an idea, right? Of who I want you to be or really who I need you to be to me,
To me, yeah,
right?
it's such an ego-driven, um, in a sense, thing
Yeah.
where you have your idea of a person, and you need them to be this,
Hmm.
and by any means necessary in
Correct.
a lot of cases. And so what I think about that is I think, well, what about the person, right? So, for example, you heard the phrase. Well, they started trying to change it now. They being this how the internet talks, and I don't know who they is, but
Sure.
um, the phrase "happy wife, happy life," right? And then I know, but then they have that now, but they're trying to say "happy house, happy spouse, happy house," right? They're
Yes.
trying to change the phrase to try to, dress it up a little bit,
Agree.
clean it up a little bit, right? Um, Now there's still a problem with that saying also, in my opinion, but all right, I see the growth a little bit. Um,
We're trying.
I see what you're trying to do, right? Right.
Yeah.
But what I mean by that is essentially it's such a selfish act because if I conform to who you need me to be, this thing, this mystery, perfect person of idea of a man or whatever the case may be, and so naturally you talk about the essence of who I am. Naturally, probably isn't that,
Right.
and now I have to squeeze myself into this thing, and then there any care for what I even feel about this or who I am about, like, you know what I mean, like.
Yes. So let me take us back to an earlier part of our conversation and give you like the other half of that. So remember, I
Mhm.
was talking about uh, in the nature of relationships, particularly between men and women, where because men are not socialized to have emotionally intimate relationships, often the only space they have to work through some of those things is in their intimate partnerships, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The flip side of that is the conditioning for women is often that we find our value in our ability to show up for folks
Mm,
and to nurture them and to sit with them through the difficult times and through the
mm,
da da da, right? Which is often why we have this dynamic, which is very common, where the man who is very unpracticed at being with his emotions, expressing them in a productive or constructive way, and then nurturing their partner in that regard, he shows up with all his madness. This is literally Beauty and the Beast, right? Like he shows up in all his madness,
mm,
and then we show up with our tenderness, like, I see you, I understand you, and it's okay, right? Um, and this is again a very generalized statement, but this is the way we're socialized. Doesn't mean that this is how we are, but this is the way we're
yeah,
socialized when we
yeah.
think about how we're meant to show up in the spaces the spaces and experiences that shape our lives, right? And the relationships and all of that shape our lives. So the men who have not a lot of practice, and the only space I really am seeing these parts of me and then therefore trying to figure out what to do with them is right here with you. So you're getting the messiest part of my process because I'm exploding on you. I don't know what to
Yeah.
do. You're getting the messiest. And then we are conditioned to find the value in being able to withstand that and to hold that and to be present and to be resilient and to keep showing up. Right. And so this is the conditioning that we're dealing with in the relationship. So this saying, happy wife, happy life, goes back to another thing I also said earlier, which is we cannot zoom in, we have to zoom out.
Yep.
So, if it is that we are conditioned to be resilient and tender and gentle and nurturing and all of those things, which in turn creates the space for you to go through your messy process of understanding yourself and then ultimately building a self that is more aligned with and a more accurate reflection of the truth of who you believe you are, right? Which is what you're doing currently right now in therapy.
Mhm.
You're going,
For
hold
sure.
on, the way I've been showing up is not actually who I want to be. And I'm now in the messy process of figuring out how to undo that
Yeah.
and build something new.
Hmm.
So if it is that you are in that and I am here to cover you inside of that, what we're saying with happy wife, happy life is the more I keep her feeling good about who she is and what is happening, the more she's going to cover me while I go through my messy process. And then I'm
Hmm.
going to have a space where I feel safe and loved and accepted for exactly who I am, which in turn helps me to have a happy life. So it's not that I am shutting all my stuff down and ignoring myself and minimizing my needs and pretending I don't exist in this for the sake of keeping her in this, la la land world of everything's perfect. What I'm saying is, I recognize that when you are at your best, you cover me in ways that no other person in this world is going to be there for me. And when you do that, I can then grow in the ways that I need to grow to be the man that I believe I am and do the things that I am called to do in this world. And therefore, as a result of that, the leadership that I will take in this family, in this house, will create a happy life for us. So it's not
Mm.
that the happiness is about disregarding myself. It's about safeguarding myself by investing in and nurturing the one person who's made a promise and a commitment to showing up for me in my messiest parts.
Yeah,
That's what we're saying when we
for
say that.
sure.
But when we take it out of the context of that understanding, we just say the phrase, we run into the misunderstanding that what we're suggesting is deny, minimize, ignore your needs for the sake of making her happy, and then just pretend that you are because that's
Right,
supposed to be. And that's
right.
not
Yeah,
what it's meant. That's not
yeah,
what's happening.
yeah,
Right? So this is if we go back to biblically, what we talk about, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and findeth
for
favor.
sure.
That's what we're talking about. If I recognize you as that, and then I regard you as that, and I make sure that you are always feeling stable and safe and secure around me, whether that's physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, or
Hmm.
however else, when I create a stable, safe, secure environment for you to show up and flourish as your best self, gentle nurturer that you are, when I show up to figure out my messiest parts, I know you gonna have me. We gonna
For
be
sure.
good,
Damn. Yeah. I like how
right?
you break that down, especially not having no context. And part of it is because the way TV and film market it.
Yeah,
Ever since we've been watching Married with Children, we've been,
right,
kind of growing to a phase of like, men are simple, wives are annoying, and
right,
but that's life,
right.
right?
And you can be miserable as long as she's fabulous
Yeah,
and life is
yeah,
good, right?
right,
It's just like,
right. Um, I want to ask you the question. Your wait, where's the oh, here you go. Okay, okay, I wrote it down. Your blend. Okay, you blend clinical wisdom and soulful insight
mm,
a lot. That's dealing with like just your experiences and also you hearing you talking, especially watching you with a couple of speaking engagements.
hmm,
I love the way how in tune you are with not just the room,
yeah,
but the way you even think between or before saying anything. Right?
hmm,
A lot of people just speak. A lot of
yeah.
people just speak, and right, too much happens of just talking, right? Then trying to fix it later. But um, how do you balance mental health principles with
hmm,
spiritual emotional intuition?
mm. Ooh, okay, that's a good one. Um, Spiritual principles are for me synonymous with my core values and the way that I move through the world as a human being.
Hmm.
Mental health and the tools that I have, the education and the skills and the experiences and from both living and observing other human beings become resources to pull from to translate the spiritual knowledge that I believe is imparted in me through my prayer and my relationship with God. So I
Hmm.
have those things that are about how I nurture myself and ground myself and contextualize my own understanding of the world and myself and my role and my contribution in it.
Hmm.
That's one thing. And then the tools that I have, be they from my formal education in school, my lived experience, my knowledge as an athlete or an artist, like all these other things that I've experienced, I bring those in as ways to help me share what I know
Yeah.
to be true from spiritual um curiosity, I'll say. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah.
So
For
I
sure.
I that's how I merge those two things. I'm always filtering everything through my understanding of, does that feel true to me based on what for me is the foundational truth, which is that we are all love,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like that, I'm filtering everything through that foundational
Hmm.
truth that we are all love. Then how do I make sense of this experience that we're having together in the moment that we're calling now, from this idea that we're all springing forth from love and that there are things that are disrupting and disconnecting us from that truth?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I That's such a great question because I've never had to articulate that, but I think that's what feels the most accurate for me right now and trying to answer that question. So thank you for that.
Well, that's awesome, man. I love, I when you break down. First of all, a lot of these things are things I think about on just trying to understand. Well, first of all, going into this conversation of, I know I'm having this conversation with you.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for. I'm putting myself in a position of, I'm the viewer, and I
Mm-hmm.
have these questions that I don't have answers to,
All
or
right.
I want some kind of insight to this. Not only, and I know you spiritually connected, but
Yeah.
also in the expertise field, right?
Yeah.
So I know that there's I don't have anybody up here freestyling just to sound, just to
Yeah.
drop gems because it sounds cool to the viewer, right?
Right.
I'm
Right.
talking to someone who's actually trying to help,
Yeah.
and 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 and, and who cares
Yeah.
about, not just care about the conversation, who care about people, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how we move forward.
Yeah.
So I can. What happens is, in these spaces, I want to ask the questions that, first of all, I want people here to feel safe here. They feel safe. They feel like, we'll talk about some heavy stuff, and doing these interviews or conversations, whatever. I always have some heavy stuff to talk about. But no matter if you laugh, cry, whatever,
Yeah.
here is a space where they're already prepared for it to go there, right?
Yeah.
So when I ask these questions, I'm asking from like, okay, I never had it put to me like that. That's
Mm-hmm.
dope. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
let me take that. Let me apply that. Let
Mm-hmm.
me, oh, okay, I can help. My wife asked about that. Let me share that with her.
Mm-hmm.
So my intention, everything with these questions, or just the conversation, is very intentional,
Yeah.
because I know you bring so much light in so many spaces that you walk into.
Thank
And for the people who are getting a first time listen, to Dr. Joy, I
you.
know they're just blessed with just a great spirited, super cool, dope woman. You know what I
Thank
mean? And I think that's, it's just awesome. It's awesome. And I do these spaces because I fan out with my friends, and I fan out with people
you.
because I'm just so like honored to be friends with the likes of
Yeah.
most all of you. You know what I mean? So
Thank you for
that's
that.
awesome.
And let me also then, while we giving flowers, let me also say, and thinking about the many times I've been present with you across different platforms and projects that you've worked on over the years, the common thread really, and it's kind of going back to what we spoke about, is that you are very intentional about creating spaces where folks can show up, ask hard questions, say unpopular things, you might get laughed at, right? But
For
but ultimately it's all love, right? And I think
sure.
going back to what I was sharing about how, particularly for men, there are not often a lot of spaces where you get to practice that. I want to acknowledge the power of what you're doing, even in things like the safe house, where you're saying, hey, we need to be able to process the stuff of life and spread the load in such a way that we're not then going into our intimate partnerships and then dumping it all on our wives or
Yeah,
girlfriends and expecting them to hold it, because that's when we start to hear about the imbalance and the emotional labor of partnership. When I might have my girlfriends and we do the things, and then I can come home and I can like, I've had a chance to talk through it, process, think about it, whatever that is, and now I'm coming to you with whatever.
yeah,
And you haven't had that chance because you don't have those spaces. So then when we meet, we're not even in the same place emotionally, because I might have had an opportunity to process, understand, share, vent, etc. Have myself reflected back to me. If we got real friends who gonna be like,
for sure,
now you
sure.
knew you out of pocket, right? So when
Mm-hmm.
you have that, and then I come in, I'm like, I've had some time to think about it, and then I say the thing, and you're like, boom, because I have not had some time to think about it. I do not
Right,
have friends that I'm talking about.
right,
I did not have
right.
a chance to vent or process. So now that you're ready to talk about it, we gonna talk about it. And it's like, what is happening? So the fact that you're creating spaces and opportunities for men in particular to practice the skills of feeling what you feel, naming what you feel, expressing what you feel, processing that, understanding and making sense of that. That in and of itself, even without the degrees and the licensures and the da 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 da, is incredibly valuable in a massive way. because it's like a playground for emotional intelligence. These kinds of conversations are, if you're engaging within them with any level of truth and honesty, they
Yeah.
are. Now if you're
Yeah.
just, perpetuating propaganda and because you want to get clicks, views, and shares, there
Right.
you
Right.
go. But if you're engaging in these conversations with any level of truth, honesty, clarity, willingness to learn, or curiosity, like, there's so much healing that takes place, because that's really where the healing is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That's really where the healing is with each other. That's what community is about. That's what fellowship is about. That's why we are called to be in community, for
For
that reason.
sure. 100%. It makes me this. I had a question about rebuilding
Yeah.
rebuilding process,
Yep.
and when we talk about unlearning and dealing with some of the things we deal with, different perspectives of how to look at certain things, and
Hmm.
not to take certain things so personal. And um, what does the rebuilding process look like after you let go of everything that no longer serves you?
Yeah. Oof. Oof. Woof. Um. So I'm gonna tell the truth. What it looks like at first is incredibly lonely.
Mm,
What it looks like at first is empty. What it looks like at first is disorienting. And that's largely because even though we frame it as I'm letting go of things and people that don't serve me, what's actually happening is, if I'm rewriting the story of why I thought I needed or wanted that thing in the first place, and I
mm,
first changed my own thought about myself, which is why I'm now able to say this behavior, this environment, or this relationship no longer serves me, because what I'm suggesting is that at one point it did.
yeah,
At one point, I needed this. Going back to your story about the trauma bonding, it may not be good for the future self, but that part of me, when I was in the dark by myself and I didn't have anybody and you was the only one showing up, this relationship served me for that
for
season.
sure.
And now that I'm no longer there, I no longer define myself by that experience. I'm now looking at the things that I chose, that I brought into my life during that season. And I'm saying this no longer serves me. The box served me when they were shipping my item and I wanted it to be protected, and I didn't want it to be lost or broken in the mail. But once the item gets to me and I put the thing up in my house, the box no longer serves me. I can throw it away. It served
Right.
its purpose. Doesn't mean I never needed it. It means I no longer need it. So when we're saying I got rid of the things and people and I moved out of the places that no longer serve me, what we're saying is I've changed the story about who I am, and the things that I brought into my life that were attached to that story, I don't
Right.
need them anymore. So as I'm getting rid of them, it feels a little bit lonely, because now I got to think about, how do I build the skills to actually attract the types of
Yeah.
relationships that do serve me in the season of my life. It feels a little bit disorienting because I used to depend and rely on this particular vice or habit when I was feeling this way. And because I'm no longer choosing that, and I'm still feeling this way, because feelings don't go away, we just learn how to respond to them
Yep.
differently. And so now that I'm still feeling what I'm feeling, but I'm no longer choosing to engage with this particular vice or in this particular behavior or do this thing as a response to that feeling, I'm feeling a little bit disoriented, because what do I do here? Right. And so it's lonely, it's disorienting. It causes sometimes us to doubt, because familiarity breeds trust. And this is why you
Yeah.
hear people say things like, I'd rather deal with the devil I know, right? Like, sometimes it's easier to fall back on those old habits and choices because they're familiar, and it's easier to do that than it is to sit in the uncertainty and the discomfort of not knowing, right?
Yeah.
So when you ask the question of what does it look like to rebuild after unlearning, I have to tell the truth that in that hallway, in the space between no longer and not yet, shit is tricky.
For sure.
Okay, it's very tricky in that hallway, right? So I want to name that, because if you find yourself, or when you find yourself in that season of the process, I don't want you
Mm,
to doubt that what you're doing is the path that you ought to be on.
Yeah.
That's a part of it. It's part of it. Because you are saying, I used to do that and I'm no longer choosing it, but I've not yet replaced that with something new. So in this in between space, I don't really know. I'm not clear. I don't feel grounded. It's a little bit vulnerable, which is why we tend to isolate when we're in healing
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it feels like I have a wound that's exposed and I don't want to just be walking down the street with people bumping into me with this big old exposed wound. So I just need to be by myself. Right?
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I want to acknowledge and name that that is a part of it.
Okay.
Before we get to the glorious thing of like, and now I have my boundaries and now I do the thing. Before we get
Yeah.
there, that hallway is tricky AF. Okay. And then when we start to rebuild what we are doing, and this is then now going back to that vision, which is why it's so important to spend the time to
Yeah.
be clear about who you are and what you say you want and how you are setting yourself up to be, do, and have those things, right? So when you are in the rebuilding phase, and I'm in the process building a home right now, and so I understand the importance of having a blueprint, right,
Yeah.
that you're working from, the blueprint that you're working from.
Mhm.
The blueprint of rebuilding your life is your core values, right? What are the things that I say are important to me? If I say family is important, am I living like that?
Right.
If I'm not, it's time for me to rebuild my habits around how I interact and engage with my family if I say that that's important to me. If I say that integrity is important to me, am I living with integrity? If I whatever I say the things are that are important to me, are the habits and choices that I am making on a daily basis a reflection of and in alignment with what I say is true and matters most to me, right? And you got to have those checks and balances as the guardrails as you're making choices to rebuild this new life. So I used to allow this because I was hurt and I had low self-esteem, or why because I my value system said it was money over everything, and now I'm
Mhm.
like, maybe something else. Whatever,
Right.
whatever
Right.
the things are.
Mhm.
I used to move like this because
Mhm.
this is what was true for me. And if that's not true for me anymore, what is true for me now? That's my North Star. And then when I am met with life and all the choices before me for the path that I could take, I have to make the choice that's going to move me closer to the thing I say is what I want for my life, or what I want for the world, or
Wow.
what we're doing in our marriage, or what we're doing with this company, or whatever the thing is, whatever the vision is. That's my North Star for the choices that I make every single day. And as I'm rebuilding with the new core values and the new vision at the center of every decision that I make. That's what it is. And that's what helps
Wow.
you clarify your boundaries. That's what helps you where you invest your time, energy, and effort is going to be. Is this even a true reflection of who I say I am in this season, or am I just doing this because this is where we always go on Fridays?
Right.
Because
Right.
that's
Yeah.
what we do,
Right.
right?
Wow. Wow. I love that, and I love that. Honesty in the beginning. Okay. First of all, I'm gonna tell the truth.
I gotta, you gotta
Start
do
there.
that. You have to.
This is gonna be a doozy, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
I love that, and wow, it's. I think as humans also, we go through our things. Everybody's looking for a shortcut, right?
yeah,
We're looking for a shortcut, but when you answer that, you like, wait, it's kind of it's two parts technically
yeah.
because there's so much I got to do over here first with
First,
all the things first, right?
yes,
Before we even talk about
yes,
letting something go, like we got
yeah,
to deal with this over here,
yeah.
and man, that's a whole process in itself.
Very much so. It is a journey, and that is, and I also want to name that it felt particularly important for me to say that hallway truth because I'm in the hallway right now.
Oh,
I'm in a hallway season of my life right now, and I'm so grateful for the fact that I do have a self awareness practice where I sit with. the stuff that comes up across the
Yeah.
seasons of my life, because what I'm able to do this time, having been here before, is extract the wisdom from what that process was for me back then.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and now I can be in the hallway with so much more grace, so much more patience for myself, so much more um, anticipation and excitement, because I know now what this hallway is. It doesn't feel like wandering in the darkness. It
Right.
feels like the difference between wandering in the darkness versus being in the darkness, but understanding that it's because I'm a seed that is just in the planted phase.
Yeah.
And so I know what's
Man.
coming, and I know what this process is and how necessary it is. And so um I'm able to now ask myself the right questions with the intention of, how am I moving forward? So, in this new season
Mm,
of my life, if this is the vision that I have, what are my values, right? So, I'll share, and I think I've seen Sir No Face sharing like the links to my YouTube and my Instagram and all that. So, thank you so much for that. I appreciate you. In the series on YouTube, How to Reinvent Yourself, I start by saying, what are my core values? I'm doing a new thing. I'm reinventing myself, right? I'm rebuilding, right?
mm,
Myself. And it's literally my identity, my sense of self. I used to think of myself as this, and now I am integrating this other element of
yeah.
self.
Yep. Mm,
And so it's not just a thing that I'm doing, it's a way that I'm being, that I'm
right.
integrating into my concept of myself, my identity. And the first layer of that is, what are my core values in this, as this new me? That's the first thing that I do in the episode, is I name, these are the things that are going to drive, so that when I'm making choices, as I'm building this new me and integrating it into my identity and my sense of self, as I'm doing this, these things are going to be the pillars that I always come back to measure whether or not what I'm building is exactly what I said I was coming to
Right.
do.
Let me ask you, how important
Hmm.
is it for you to recognize your core values before you move into any space? You know, because I don't think a lot of us even do that.
Yeah.
And if we did, now there's times, for example, if I use me, there's times where I may have got to put up at a party somewhere, got to
Hmm.
the door and didn't walk in because of what I felt like when I
Hmm.
got there.
Hmm.
And I'm like, the same for me,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And people can say it was God, discernment, all these things, right?
Hmm.
It could be all these things,
Yeah.
um, and also that there's a core value, a system I have of myself that I realize that first of all, I don't need to be the type of person I am. I don't even need to be in this space,
Right.
like So I'm kind of like recognizing like that truth in that moment of like so many times where I didn't do something or move a certain kind of way because of
Hmm.
these values I have myself. But
Hmm.
here's the interesting thing: I can't. I'll never get on camera and lie and say, "Joy, these are the core values I had in mind when I had these specific things since I was like 13." And no, that's not what happened, right?
Right. Right.
But but I know that there's principles, there's certain things or
Hmm.
certain things I've experienced or and learned in my life, coming up, experienced in my life where
Hmm.
nah, this place not for me,
Yeah.
or I think I was talking to a guy. No, I was talking to my cousin yesterday, talking
Hmm.
about the the difference between living where he lives. He lives in Lake Elsinore that
Okay.
way, and different from living where I live. And I
Yeah.
was telling him how I love his neighborhood.
Yeah.
I love how they all of the neighbors are super cool. Everybody's cool, nice.
Hmm.
Nice areas out there. And
Hmm.
we talked about how your values and how you represent yourself and the values you set in front of yourself could should be looked at when you're doing anything. We talk about moving, or certain areas you move to, or
Yeah.
certain people you talk to and letting your space, or certain friends you may
Yes.
bring around your family or your wife. You know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
there maybe, even if you haven't talked about them, there's a core set of values. I'll be
Absolutely.
willing to say that you're acting on subconsciously.
Yeah.
And that's kind of interesting to me because I never told myself, "Oh, here's my core values." But I
Yeah.
thought about so many instances when you were just speaking of
Absolutely.
of whether it's the safety thing, my values kicking in, like this say I don't need to be. This is not a place I want to be at. That's not
Right.
even how I get down, or
Mhm.
I need to leave now because
Yeah.
of something I feel like, or whatever the case may be. So I thought that
Yeah.
was really interesting when you look
Absolutely.
at it that way.
And so when we talk about doing our work, right, the
Hmm.
work of healing, I always say, people talk about relationships take work. I always say relationships don't take work, people take work. And relationships will often reveal to us what our work is. So when we
Ooh,
talk about doing our work, the work of healing, clarifying those core values is a part of that work. Because to your
yeah.
point, they exist subconsciously and they are guiding how you move through the world, whether you're intentionally understanding that or not. But when you bring those to the surface, going back to that piece about self awareness, this is why I keep telling you it's the cornerstone of my work. When you do the work of bringing what already exists subconsciously to
Mhm.
your conscious mind, and then you clarify those things, you give it language, now you are able to move with clarity and intention and
Yeah.
with some level of deliberate action
Yep.
because you're saying, this choice is a demonstration of me living in alignment with what I say matters. That is what integrity is.
Ooh, I like that.
This choice that I'm making right now is a
Yeah.
physical embodied demonstration of me living in alignment with what I say matters to me. So if I say that I believe in God, are the choices I'm making a demonstration, an embodied demonstration of that belief? Or is it just lip service?
You are messing me up right now.
I'm saying this is what it is.
Wow. Because the flip side of that is that you recognize when you aren't putting
Correct.
your core values
Which
first.
is what
And
we call conviction.
yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Absolutely. So
Wow.
when you bring that, when you bring your core, so for instance, you said I don't walked up to a party and I just didn't go in because I didn't feel the. Yes, we might call that the Holy Spirit. We might call that discernment. We might call
Yeah.
that intuitive wisdom. We might call it all that. But inside of that framework, the reason why we have language for discernment, intuition, Holy Spirit, whatever, is because we have a broader understanding of faith. And if faith is a core value, and my faith says you have access to the Holy Spirit, which will nudge you in moments,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you say my
Wow.
faith says to trust that discernment, that intuitive knowing.
Hmm.
So when you act on that and say, yeah, I'm not going in here, I don't care how far we drove, and I done got fresh,
Yeah. Yeah.
put the
Yeah.
good cologne on, I did all that, and I'm
Right.
not going in there because my core values say when that nudge or tug in my spirit urges me to do something different, I listen to that because my core values say that that's what I should do. So even if you're not naming
Wow.
that, that's a demonstration. So when you bring that to the surface from your
Hmm.
subconscious to your conscious mind, you now put yourself in position to be deliberate about living in alignment with your values. And
Yeah.
when you do that,
Wow.
that's when you start to really attract. So when people talk about designing their lives, so the reason why I'm moving out of the country, we've had this conversation. When people
Hmm.
ask me, why are you moving? Because of the values, the cultural
Yep.
values are more aligned with how I want to move through my day to day life. I don't want to have to fight in my environment every day to live with some human decency
Right. 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 For sure. For
or to
sure.
be worried about if I do move with human decency, am I going to be taken advantage of by somebody who don't give a shit because we live in a culture that
Yeah. Yep.
is gonna see that as a weakness, that I'm kind and that I'm open, that I'm trusting, that I'm giving, they're gonna see that as an opportunity to capitalize because that's the culture that we live in that perpetuates the idea that Dog eat dog. Only the strong survive. Right? I don't want to live in a world where I have to hide the kindest, most open and generous parts of me because I'm afraid that that's going to be taken advantage of. So I'm going to move myself to a place where that's less likely to happen. And that's a choice, a deliberate choice that I'm making about my life and my future that is in alignment with my values and who I choose to be and how I choose to move through the world. Right?
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes. I'm sitting over here. It's a. First of all, it's gonna be so many clips from this video. But I, it's like you take just the way you break things down.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have questions. I'll speak for me.
Yeah.
I ain't that rare, so I feel like somebody else probably thought this. But it's like you have a way to where you break things down,
Mm-hmm.
and well, it's always received well for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the way you break it down, man, I don't know if it's like a bunch of stuff included. Not, and it's gonna sound surface, but it's a little deeper than that. Like
Mm-hmm.
even with tone of voice, and the way you pronunciate and all these things. That's one thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's I love the obviously the experience and dealing with people, right? And but also there's a I'm gonna say this, and I don't know if this is the right word, but it feels like that. There's a real motherly quality to it.
Okay.
It's it's kind of like well, I guess maybe because when there is safe spaces, especially men. Speaking, I can't speak for all men, but I'm pretty sure like it's a comfortability there,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're schooled also.
Yeah.
So it's wrapped in education, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
and but we feel the spiritual connection part.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, and then the breaking down of the way a person feels. Like you've been doing it for me,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I never felt so seen in such a beautiful way.
Yeah.
That's,
Wow.
that's
Oh.
what it is. I never, and so I don't mind. I remember somebody told me when I was doing my videos called I do a series called Fighting Depression, and
Mm-hmm.
those have been like really high emotional, and we've prayed online, we've done a bunch of stuff, we're just talking. I've poured my soul out online before,
Yeah.
and somebody told me offline that look, man, you saying too much, man. You don't want them to think you soft, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, did you not listen to any of the things I've been
Yeah.
saying for
Yeah.
of how that much how
Yeah.
that is a huge problem in itself? What
Mm-hmm.
you just told me about that soft because I poured my soul, or I may have cried on camera, or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe about something I really feel passionately about,
Yeah.
right? And especially about someone who says like, "Thank you, I needed to hear that."
Right.
Right? We're talking to viewers who have said, "Thank you, I need to hear that," or I don't know if you've seen it, but the things they're saying about what they're hearing about what you're saying, it's
Mm-hmm.
like if we're doing that kind of work. When I say work, I'm not saying we're in a job here, but if we're
Yeah. I
speaking
know.
to
I
a
understand
point
what
where people are picking up some things and getting blessed by what is being said,
Yeah.
like who are you to say something about somebody being soft when they're being blessed like they're being blessed, like I'm being blessed in that moment?
Right.
So I
Right.
just need to say that because when I hear you speak, I fall into the you almost forget that we're doing a thing here, right?
Other people are
Yeah, people are watching. So I be listening, I'll be like, oh, I'm supposed to talk now. And I'm like, because I be into it, you know what I mean? And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, like,
Yeah.
and nothing. I, I have an idea of questions I want,
Yeah.
but I'm processing the last thing.
Yeah.
And I sit in it. I like to sit in it a little bit. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, I'll be like, man, and so I'm sitting in and processing it
Yeah.
because I don't leave conversations like this just on the internet. Like I like to take and apply, and
Sure.
maybe I can share this with someone. And I've been talking about trying not to butcher
Yeah.
something you've said when you told you spoke in my church, and
Okay.
you talked about how and correct me if I say this wrong. I don't go into an explanation about how you said it, but I
Mm-hmm.
love the fact when you said Um, your you correct me if I'm saying this right. Your yeses don't mean much until you can say no.
Yeah.
Something in that kind of effect, right?
Your yeses have no power until you can say no. Yep.
And I've been on that ever since, right?
That's been almost a year ago. That was July
What?
last summer.
Here's the thing. This is how I absolutely love it. And I love you too, obviously, but this is how
Yeah,
I absolutely love it.
you
When
too.
I asked you, Joy, I would love to have you on the podcast recently, just for this one. I would
Mm-hmm.
love to have you on the thing I'm doing live streaming. I would love to have you on YouTube and what and then you said, well, what's the information and this, that, and that, whatever. You said, okay, let me get back at you.
Yes.
And I'll let you know and in my mind, I was like, yes, she did exactly what she said to do. And you
Yes.
should do, right? Because you have to, because I find myself in those spaces where even still, after you said what you said, I learned so much that day. And
Yeah.
I found myself recently in a spot where I said yes to too much this week.
Oh, wow.
I did. And I'm like, I don't want to do if there's 10 things I said yes to, I don't want to do 9 of them.
Wow.
So I thought about that. And when you did that, I was
Mm.
like, that's what I was supposed to say.
Yeah.
Let me give me a
Oh,
second, let me get back,
wow.
let me check,
Yeah.
because it's first of all, it's real life. Do I have the capacity
Right.
to take this on?
Yes.
Do I? You just saying yeah because these are your friends and they cool. You
And
know,
I always say, yeah, we always gonna do it.
we always gonna say,
And
but the way you broke that down,
it's not about you're my friend or I find value in doing this or
oh,
it's not about any of those things. It's about I'm in a season of my life right now where I have lots of things going on and I want to make sure that I am reserving the energy that I have to be
yeah,
able to invest in the things that I'm saying matter to me, which doesn't mean if I say no it doesn't matter. It means that when I have a list of priorities, I want to acknowledge my humanity and I have limited resources. I have finite
yeah,
energetic resources. I only have so much time in a day,
for
right?
sure.
And it's really about honoring you by saying I respect what you're doing and don't want to show up with crumbs.
I was just about to say that yeah, it was emphasis on that. On you're calling me and basically asking me to be my best self in
Correct.
what you expect from me,
Exactly.
and I can't necessarily be my best self if I've spread myself so thin
Yes.
across the board anyway. So now there's a bunch of people getting only pieces of me, and I'm not
Correct.
showing up in a way that I can show up because I didn't agree to all these things because we're cool, because we're friends, because we're family.
Correct.
And the flip side is like if I said no or I can't or I scheduled a thing, whatever, does that mean we weren't gonna be family or cool or friends anymore?
And if
Right?
that's what that means, I now have a new understanding of our relationship, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
And that's
Even see, and even how you said that, I
okay.
love that because, and that's okay too.
And that's okay.
Because why would I take that on as another thing to
Hmm.
add on to all the things that could be on me? Now I'm trying to rid myself of so many things. Now just learning, living life, and experiencing. Right, just trying to let things go. And
Yeah.
then I took on something as you. I was just not getting to the story. We'll talk offline. But I was just recently. I was released from a friendship.
Okay.
Someone didn't like how um, me and my wife uh, responded to something
Okay.
something that they did. We didn't even do anything, right? And I'll tell you offline. We'll talk. And the only reason why I'll talk to you about this offline because it's the wife. It's not.
Sure, I
I
understand
usually talk to her about
boundaries.
something I'm going to say
Everybody,
publicly, right?
everything ain't for everybody.
Yeah, for everybody. So
Okay.
so
Yeah.
and they didn't like how we reacted or didn't react, right?
Mhm.
And they released me,
Yeah.
And I thought about it. I was like, this is so silly,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, what? And the first thing I asked, I showed my wife. I said, "What does that say about us being friends for so many years
Mhm.
that you don't like this thing I did or didn't do, and then now you can release me
Yeah.
like I was fighting to stay? I mean, but that's a whole other thing. But like you released me, like, like it was a record contract, and I'm like, all right. But I took, but in respect, I took it how you took it. I kind of like, all right. I told her, I said, God bless you. I love you. I said,
Yeah.
I didn't, I said, I said, I did, I mean, I know we're friends, and I didn't want this, but I also respect your opinion, and God bless, and I hope all is well. And I meant that. I wasn't trying to be a smart. Because I love the person, and we are. I thought we were friends,
Right.
and but okay,
Well, you
but I
were
love
friends,
that.
but your definition of what that friendship meant was different from theirs, right? And
Yeah,
that's
or time was just up.
and and that's so I want to connect some dots, right, to the
Hmm.
conversation that we've been having throughout because I think it's all kind of starting to show up in these scenarios, and
Yeah,
I don't want us to miss the way life is teaching us always.
for sure.
Um, so going back to the conversation you and I had when you invited me to come here, I am clear about who I am, what I'm doing to some degree in this
Mm,
world.
mm,
And I am in a season where seeds that I planted years ago are starting to produce a harvest. And they're
mm.
required of me to be present in certain ways and places and doing things. So that when you come and say, I'm doing this podcast, can you join? I'm looking at the season of my life that I am in and saying, based on my core values, one of which being service, I believe that it's my responsibility to actively seek opportunities to serve the world with my gifts. I am doing that in some capacity over here. You're inviting me to do it in another capacity over here. And now I'm saying, if this is a core value and I want to show up as my best self, living in alignment with that value, does this situation get a yes from me? And
Yeah.
if the answer is I can't give it a yes and I say
Mhm.
no, and then your response is to say, I thought we was cool, you were gonna whatever the things are, you
Yeah,
wouldn't, but
right.
I'm example, right? I thought we were cool, how dare you, and now you were not friends. I would then look at you and then go back to what I said earlier, which is I don't take responsibility for your emotions and choices. So if my no causes you to feel so disregarded that you don't
Mhm,
think we can be friends anymore, I'm going to say, that's okay.
mhm.
Because what you're effectively saying is the growth trajectory of my life and me choosing to make room for and prioritize those things which are bringing me closer to the vision that I have. If I say yes to those, and that means I can no longer say yes to other things that I used to say yes to because
Right.
those things right now no longer
Yeah.
serve me.
Yeah.
And that disturbs you to the point where we can no longer be connected, then I have to respect and I have to assume that our assignment in each other's lives is complete. And I don't need to try to hold on to an expired relationship in the name of proving something to you about who I am, when
Yeah.
really you're making your decision about a story you made up that has nothing to do with me.
Right.
And so when I release myself of that, I don't have to now chase you and then try to be like, oh, let me try to make room because I got to do this and I got to. And there was a time when I would have been like, yes, I can do it. And then I would have been like pulling my hair out, trying to write
Yeah. Trying to make it
and
work. Yeah.
create this script over here and prep over here and do the. I would have been trying to do it all because I'm trying to prove something to you about who I am, which has nothing to do with the truth and has everything to do with a performance and a facade.
Yeah. Do you do is the for example in that instance where a friend does that, um, is there any possibility for the door to stay open?
I'm a fan of doors that are not bolted shut and can be
Mhm.
easily be unlocked and reopened. If
Okay.
right, but um, it also there has to be um some kind of mutual agreement and understanding of what that means.
Yeah.
So if we had a relationship, whatever the capacity and the nature and the dynamic of that relationship is, and then there is a transgression between us, something happens and we fall off, we fall out,
Mhm.
and we decide sometime later to reconnect. I don't believe in pretending that didn't happen and time just moves on and we just
Right. Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
need to we are effectively different people. If for only the reason that we're on the other side of something.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were on one side of something and then a thing happened. Now we're on the other side of it.
Mm.
Inherent in that, I am a new, right? I am a new person because I have a new experience that is informing
Yep.
and shaping
Yep.
my understanding of myself in the world. That's it.
Mm.
So now, if we have had whatever time apart and we're reconnecting, we effectively have to redefine what is the nature of our relationship? What does that look like? What are we doing?
Mm.
Right? And I have, people who in one season of my life were like in the inner circle, right in the bullseye. You're right in here.
Mm.
All the things. And over time, you're still here, but you might be a few rungs out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And because people are dynamic, so too are relationships. We're not going to always have the same level of closeness that we have consistently throughout, like static across in a straight line. It's not going to happen that way, right? And it's not has nothing
Mhm.
to do with what I think or how I feel about you, as much as it is we are human beings. We're not going to grow in the same direction at the same rate and at the same speed all the time over the course
Yeah.
of our lives.
For sure.
So can I make room for you to be who you are and for me to be who I am? And is our relationship malleable enough to move with the flow of that as it changes across seasons, right? And if that means sometimes we need a little bit of distance, okay. And if it wasn't nothing deep and it was just like life was life and then you okay, fine. But if it's like something happened, like we can look at that and go like somebody did a thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what caused us to when we
Mm.
come back, we can't just pretend that didn't happen.
Right.
What we
Right.
what we talking about? So if I trip over a log and I stub my toe when I come back, am I gonna pretend the log is not there and then keep tripping over and keep being surprised every time I
Ah.
stub my
Yeah.
toe? Like it doesn't make sense. I have to do something. I have
Yeah.
to either move the log, I have to learn to step over it and to type what that looks like, or I have to take another route. But I'm not gonna keep
Mhm.
stubbing my toe in a log and acting shocked as if I didn't know it was there. That doesn't make sense.
Right.
So we got to do something. This thing happened, which to me revealed something about you, or this thing happened that revealed something
Yeah.
about me. Like I'm thinking about a friend right now who going through a lot of stuff, and I understand that and try to show up and be present through that. And in it, because the stuff got heavy, their capacity to hold that and respect me was challenged. So the choice was, I'm gonna pop off on you, Joy. And I
Mm.
said, "Oh, okay, you got it." And what that meant was two things. I said, I'm still processing how you handled me in that situation. I know that you're going through a lot, so I don't believe that that's truly who you are. But it
Mm.
does say something to me when you are going through things that there's a possibility that I'm gonna catch a stray.
Right.
I have to now decide how close I want to be when you letting off,
Right.
because I don't know. You're showing me not that you're a bad person, but that in stressful situations, your capacity for self control is diminished.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm saying. Your capacity for self control in a stressful situation is diminished. And now I have to decide how close I want to be to you when you going through what you're going through. Not because I don't want to be there for you, because I have to decide how can I be there for you in a way that
Yeah.
still makes sure I'm safe. That's it.
Mm.
And if and when your situation is complete and you come back and you want to have a conversation, you got to understand the first thing we're going to do is define how we do that.
First. First.
When you're going through
Right.
the things, I need you to make a commitment to figuring out how you're going to go through the things.
Yeah.
And while you're doing that, just know that until I feel like it's safe to approach again, when you're going through the things, I'm a fall back a little bit. So just know that moving forward, if you feel me, it's because you're going through something that I'm like, last time you was going through something, you popped off on me in ways that I didn't think was fair or necessary. So now I have to respond to that by, if we choose to move forward and reconnect, just know that when I see you going through something, evidence has shown that your capacity for self control is diminished. And I
Yeah.
now become responsible for protecting myself. So when I fall back, that's because I done already stubbed my toe on that log once before. I ain't gonna keep stubbing it. And that's it.
Wow. This hearing your response, I skipped all the way down to another question because so I heard. So I was not hearing, but I'll just ask a question. So,
Yeah.
what does holding space really mean to you,
Mm-hmm.
and how do you practice that for yourself and others?
Okay. Um, Holding space is observing and acknowledging what is coming up, thoughts, sensations, behaviors, and holding space is observing and acknowledging that without judgment.
Yeah.
Just letting it be present. I'm holding space and letting it be present. I am, when your mama used to tell you, take that chicken out the freezer.
Mm-hmm.
The bowl you put it in is holding space for that chicken to unthaw and to move from
Yeah.
a solid state to a state that is a little bit, can season, you can do all the things
Mm-hmm.
you want to do. But while it is unthawing, the bowl is holding space for that process to unfold. It's not doing anything. It's not interfering. It's not,
Right. Right.
it's just being there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So holding space is allowing the things that are unfolding to happen and to acknowledge and observe those things without judgment. And the way that I do that for myself is often through just sitting with my thoughts. I like to go outside and sit in the park
Mm-hmm.
because my mind be racing and the thoughts be big. And the way that my brain works is like a projector screen. I'm for real. I'm dead serious. The projector in my mind is like a projector screen, and I just be like seeing. And so I like to be outside because I need room for all that to do what it's
For
gonna
sure.
do. Get out
For
here.
sure.
What? And so for me, I just like to be in a space where I can allow that. Sometimes it's music, sometimes whatever it is, but I let that happen and I observe my thoughts and my feelings. And sometimes I record them. I got a ton of voice notes and videos of me just verbally processing because I need to talk through things. It's helpful for me. I journal, right? And it's just allowing the things to come up without judging them,
Yeah.
without trying to fix them, without trying to do anything. Just, oh, this is how I feel. This is what's going on. Whoa.
Right.
Just letting it all come out. And I allow that to happen. And that's the way I hold space for myself, but that's also the way that I hold space for others. When you are able to share things with me, when what you said earlier, the way that you feel so seen, that is like the biggest compliment I could ever receive, is that somebody not only feels seen by me, but they feel safe being seen by me.
Yeah.
That is a huge, which when I think about safe spaces, I'm always like, I don't get to define that for you. I can show up and do my best, but only you get to define whether or not it actually feels safe for you. Right? I can't say that this is a safe space. I don't know. I'm trying to make it that, but is it? Right? Because it
Wait.
might not be anything that I say or do. It could just be like, oh, black women this. And so when you come in and see a black woman, you might have all the things that have got nothing to do with me, but you now don't feel safe. And I can't determine that for you because that was my intention. I don't get to tell you that this is. You have to decide that. You have to define that. Right?
Boy, you are first of all, you gotta relax. You got to chill. I you have wait. Because I can't your safe space, I can't define that for you.
I can't. I don't know what you need.
And and when I hear the word,
Yeah.
see, when I hear the word safe space, I already have preconceived notions because I know what a safe space looks like to me.
Correct.
So what happens is I assume what you mean. This is a safe space for everybody.
It's
But
not.
it's not.
It's not.
It's not because What I consider a safe space, everything behind me essentially helped me create what this safe space looks like.
Exactly.
And maybe of ideas of
Right.
what I want for myself or what I feel like are non-threatening,
Yes.
uh, understand me. I'm dealing with that earlier, being misunderstood, right? So
Yeah.
all these things I'm creating
Mhm.
to make this space, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is universal, but it's not.
It's not.
And
It's not.
and ooh, okay, here's another thing. Somebody messed me up. That helps me because if you understand that I can't define it, if I can't define that for another person,
Right.
then I should understand or be more receiving
Uh-huh.
when it comes to someone uh, describing what a safe space looked like to them.
Yeah, saying I actually don't feel safe here. I know that you're wanting me to, and you're trying to make me feel safe, but I'm not. I want to share a quick story with you to get to paint this picture. And again, I'm not. I don't know if I've shared it with you before or not, but I was working with. It was a man actually. He was a man. He came in, and he was sharing with me that he had come in because he was trying to manage his anger issues, and he
Mhm.
was like, "It's starting to ruin my marriage." We talked about the root of his anger and, across several sessions. Ultimately, what ended up coming up is that one day he shared with me that one of the points of contention in his marriage is that he didn't like going to his wife's mother's house.
Mm.
And of course, that made her feel some type of way because what you mean you don't want to go to my mama's house? Like, what? Right?
Right.
So, and he was just like, I don't like going over there, whatever. Through several sessions on a journey, ultimately, what we discovered is that there was a kind of moldy smell in the house that took him back to, and I want a trigger warning for abuse, took him back to a room, a closet in particular, in which he was abused as a child.
Mm.
The smell. And I don't know if you know this, that of all of our senses, smell is the most closely linked to memory. So it's the reason why you're going to smell fresh baked cookies and immediately have childhood memories of being at grandma's house.
Yeah.
Whatever that
Yeah.
is, right? It takes you back to a moment.
For
Smell
sure.
is the sense that is closest linked to memory.
I didn't
So
know that. Wow.
he
Okay.
was not able to identify it consciously until we went down this path and I asked him a set of questions, which is again why I always encourage people to reflect and have those moments to understand yourself because there's so much wisdom there. And there's so
Wow.
much about how we move through the world that is subconscious that when we bring it to our consciousness allows us to feel really empowered in the choices that we make and the lives that we create because we have this awareness. So it existed for him subconsciously, but he could not articulate it because he had not brought it to the consciousness of his mind. And so it just showed up as I don't want to go there. I don't like it. And now his wife is feeling away.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we were able to bring that to the surface and he was able to have that conversation, it's not that I don't like your mom or that I don't want to spend time with her. It is that when I go to her house, this smell takes me back to a really painful memory and experience from my childhood. And by I don't want to go there because I'm trying to avoid that. Not only did she have a new understanding of what was happening, she went from angry to empathetic.
Yeah.
She went from
Yeah.
feeling disrespected to feeling like she had a responsibility to care for her husband in this way. And what was a point of contention became a point of connection because now we're working together. I do want to spend time with your mom. I know how close you are, and I don't want us to be a, I
Yeah.
don't want
Yeah.
your relationship with her to be a wedge between us, and I don't want your relationship with me to be a wedge between her. How can we figure it out? And then they started to figure out ways to be able to spend time with her mom and their extended family that didn't involve him having to be in a place that was triggering for him because of a painful childhood experience. My point is, the grandma, the wife's mom, I'm sure she thought her house was a safe space. I'm
Yeah.
probably cooking y'all Sunday dinners.
For
I'm
sure.
probably doing all the things to make my house welcoming to my daughter's husband. Yet he doesn't feel safe because something that has nothing to do with me and that I had no control over and could have never known that he didn't even really know himself. And I could have
You,
never done anything to fix that
yeah,
without that awareness. Right?
right. But you got to be thinking also another way to look at safe spaces, like the grandma with the houses, smell
Mhm.
like the mold and stuff. Is that because you may not, uh, because a place may not be a safe space for you,
Mhm.
does not mean
Mhm.
that you are being attacked or in some kind of way where it's a personal thing to you.
Exactly.
Because hearing that example
Mhm.
showed me that, oh, wait a minute. So it's not that it's not that somebody created a space that was unsafe for you
Exactly.
personally,
Yes.
right? It's just that something happened, and now we're dealing with a thing,
Yeah.
and there's a way through it all, right?
Yes.
But we have to, communicate, learn how to communicate. There's a bunch of steps to
Exactly.
doing all this
Right.
stuff, and so it's like if I'm offended by something Joy said, and Joy's not even talking to me,
Okay.
and now for me to put that on Joy, lash that on to Joy,
Mhm.
like she's not safe in any capacity because if she did this thing to me one time that
Mhm.
wasn't to me really,
I just did a thing and it impacted you.
and it impacted me in such a way. But damn, that's a good thing. It helps me because, well, especially in the modern times of like 2020s on down, the mental health has been thrown around crazy, trauma, the word toxic,
Mhm.
and safe spaces,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And so people like to throw these words around and use them for almost attack methods a lot of times too,
Mhm.
right? Where they say, it's a trigger thing. Like, you're not creating a safe space for me. But sometimes, not all the time, because I don't know who's doing what, but
Right.
sometimes someone's using it in context of argument or just to be combative,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And
But that's
but the
also them putting the responsibility on others to
or somebody else.
so this is what I'm saying. If it
Wow.
is that I do
Mhm.
a thing and you're like, "Ooh, Joy did the thing. I don't feel safe around her." You get to make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is on you to say,
For
because here's
sure.
the thing, even when it's not intentional doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. She wasn't intentionally making her
Yeah.
house smell that way, but that's the way it smelled. And that's what it brought up for him. And he
Yeah.
decided this is not safe. And it wasn't about him judging her. He never stopped his wife from going over there. He never talked bad about
Yeah.
her. Like, I don't want to go because I don't feel safe. You get to decide that. Where
And
it
that's what,
goes left is when you
mhm.
try to start controlling people to
There it
make
is.
them do what you think requires to make you feel safe. And then now you're wrestling with somebody who's like, what are we talking about? Which in some instances, this is where the communication piece comes in. Because if I do say something and you're like, ooh, that was, ugh. But then you do an assessment of my character and you do an inventory of the nature of our relationship, and you're like, that don't, even though it felt like this, that doesn't track
Yeah.
who I know this person to be. How do I bring it to their attention so that they understand that doesn't work?
Yeah.
And if they're
Damn.
willing to say, ooh, my bad, I wasn't aware, I didn't know, then great.
That's man. Yeah. I just thought about so many times the word's been used. I've used the word,
Absolutely.
and a lot of times, we do attach it to like somebody is an offense, or I personally attached it to they're the reason for my space being unsafe now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Even though Joy wasn't talking to me, she's the reason why my space is unsafe now
Yeah.
because I projected and put it on her,
Hmm.
right? Um, and to your point earlier, and I think you kind of was saying something with this also.
Hmm.
Um, the other problem is with that is that people tend to because he could have the guy with the smelling with the right,
Yeah.
he could have made it personal because
Right.
trauma tends to do that a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
And then make it like, yeah, I don't like your grandma, like she's doing it intentionally,
Right.
even though it's a possibility that she would even know that that's a thing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But
we will often
people
try to
attach it.
justify we will try to justify our behaviors by looking for evidence in other people. So this is
Yeah,
something I
yeah, for
always say,
sure.
like, you don't ask questions you don't want to know the answer to. You go, if you look for evidence, you're gonna find it, right? Because you're looking for a reason to justify the way that you do. And again, this just happened with the person that I was just describing earlier when I
Hmm.
brought to their attention, like, hey, you did the thing, I didn't like that. Well, it's because I thought this. I understand what you thought, and what I'm telling you is now I'm going to ask you to measure that against. Now you had a thought, which okay. Now I want you to measure that against the evidence of the reality of our relationship.
Yeah,
The thing that you thought, does that match who I have been to you?
right.
And
Yeah,
no, no, it doesn't. And I know it's because I'm going, okay, and that's fine. But I just need you to understand that that's a process I need you to be able to go through on your own. I need
yeah,
you to be able to have that thought and say, this is what, and until we can get you there, I need some space. I need a little distance because that was really hurtful. And now I am having a little bit of trepidation around being in your physical space.
yeah, yeah. Wow. I do want to ask. I'm gonna get you out of here, but I do want to ask one question, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Um, one more question. What advice? How do I want to ask? Okay, what advice do you give someone
Hmm.
who knows they're not living in alignment,
Mm.
but feels afraid to make a change?
Mm.
And
Wow.
alignment could be, we can
Hmm.
make up examples, obviously, about somebody
Yeah.
going through something, and but so they're very conscious of, they know they're not doing the things,
Hmm.
but also they obviously know they need to change, but afraid of whatever, fear of the unknown, so.
That, and that's exactly it. I would not, and this is just again a practice of mine. I wouldn't give advice, but I would ask a question. I think it would lead them to their own internal wisdom,
Okay.
and that is, and you already named it. When you are not living in alignment with fill in the blank, right? Your truth, your values, your vision. When you are not living in alignment with those things, the way to clarify your path forward, I think, would be to ask yourself, what am I afraid of?
Mm,
I know that based on the vision that I have for my life, based on what I believe to be true, based on what have adopted as my core values and the things that I say are most important to me, I know that the choices that I'm making and the experiences that I'm having, the spaces that I'm in, and the relationships that I'm engaging in are not in alignment with these values, this vision, this truth. I'm aware of that, but I can't seem to get in alignment. What am I
mm,
afraid of?
what am I afraid of?
Because there's something that's causing me to make a choice that I know doesn't serve the truth, the vision, and the values, but it does serve some part of me, some part of me that's choosing to play small, some part of me that's choosing to stay in what's familiar, some part of me that's trying to prove something to somebody else, some part of me is afraid to no longer live inside of that story and choose the new story. It could be a fear of the unknown. It could be a fear of failure. It could be a fear of rejection. It could be a fear
Right.
of loss. If I don't do this, the people that have always held me down, they gonna dip, and I'm gonna be out here by myself, and I can't. This is people got to keep it real, got to be loyal to the soil, all that. So because
Mm,
if I don't do that, I gotta do. So if I know that who I believe I am is somewhere out there, and the choices I'm making today are not moving me closer to a full embodiment of that truth,
mm,
the thing that's going to help me unblock the path is the answer to the question, what am I afraid of?
what am I afraid of? Right. Right.
What am I afraid of? And then once you ask that question, you got to tame that fear. Is that even a real thing? Probably not. But
Mm,
if it is a real thing, yeah, I might make this choice and I might be out here. Because what did I say? It can be lonely. It could be scary. It could
yeah,
be dark. It could be these things in the beginning when you're rebuilding this new life, this new identity. Because you have to shed all the things that were part of your old self. And so when you're doing that, all the things that you're afraid of could be very real possibilities. Then you have to decide, do I trust myself? Do I trust myself to navigate these lonely, dark, hard spaces? Do I have, what skills do I need to help me be able to do that? What am I leaning on in those moments? Is it my faith? Is it, do I have one or two, you know, that's going to always ride with me because they just know what it is? Like, what is that,
yeah.
right? What are my resources? What can I cling to in the moments when it's hard because I'm afraid, but I know I have to do this because the truth of who I am is calling me into a new way of being.
That don't trust. Do I trust myself part?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's heavy.
Yeah, it is.
That's heavy because I've asked myself that many times, even with things I've prayed for.
Mhm.
And I've prayed for certain positions or certain things in life. And in that same breath, I also thought to myself, you can't even handle that right now where you are in your life. You can't
You would
even
fumble. You would
with
fumble
fumble.
that every time you would fumble it. And that is accountability. That's accountability.
Yeah,
I'm praying for something that I know I'm not ready to receive. So then it becomes, what do I need to do to get ready?
for sure.
What
My
do I
prayer changed after that too, because that was really me. And my prayer changed that I started asking God that prepare me for all the gifts you want me to have. Prepare me for all
prepare
the things.
me for that which you have prepared for me? That is a mantra. Prepare me for that which you have already prepared for me.
Yeah, yeah,
Let
yeah.
me be a good steward of the things that you would entrust me with.
Mm,
Make me
wow.
the person I need to be to hold the blessings that you promised. Please don't give me a
Ooh,
blessing when I'm not ready for it. Don't give
yeah.
your keys to a 5-year old and then expect them not to
Right,
crash your car because they will.
right.
They will, and they're gonna do it every time. And I know that God loves me enough not to give me something that I'm not ready for. So when we say, if God brings you to it, God will bring you through it.
For sure.
That
For
God
sure.
will give you more than you could bear. So when, even when you think you can't handle it, this is when you have to lean on, okay, but obviously you see something in me, you know something about who I am, you know about something you planted in me that's going to get me through this. God, reveal that to me so I can cling to it, to cling to that strength, cling to that wisdom, cling to that resilience, cling to that community, cling to that gift. Show me the thing that you implanted in me that I can't yet see right now, that I need to extract and bring to my consciousness to be able to get through this.
Yeah,
So I can be the person that like I keep telling people, so uncomfortable right now, but it's because I know I'm being stretched to receive
yeah.
all the things that I've been asking for. So it is incredibly uncomfortable, and I am working so hard to stay in gratitude because I know that this is just me being stretched to hold more. All the things that I've been praying for are coming, and I have to enlarge my territory to be able
For
to
sure.
receive. And that is an incredibly uncomfortable process, but I've been here before. I've been through it. That means I know what to do. That means I have a blueprint. That means I have proven to myself that I can do hard things. And so now it's just trusting myself to do hard things in a new way at this new level.
For sure.
That's
For
it.
sure.
And that's the
Wow.
journey with God,
Yeah.
right? That's the journey with God.
Wow.
That is growing from God can to God will. and I'm living like you're going to do the things you said, and I just got to show up and do my part. And it's hard and it's uncomfortable and it's all these things. But right now, this is what's necessary to receive what is coming next.
Wow. Joy, man, it has been a pleasure. It
Yes.
has absolutely been a pleasure. Um, I love you dearly.
I love
You're
you
an
too.
awesome friend. You've always been an amazing friend. And I'm so honored and proud of the woman you've become. And I know you have so much more to do,
Yeah.
so much more to give, so much more to teach, so much more to learn. Right.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm so excited about the journey because I get to sit, especially like me and Lashonda. Me and
Yeah.
Lashonda, you get to sit in the
Yeah.
front row and get to watch and cheer you on.
Yeah.
You
Wow.
know,
Thank
and that's an amazing thing. And thank you. I've had a bunch of these conversations, and there have been some amazing conversations.
you.
Um, this conversation was different. It was
Okay.
different. This conversation for me, it was just a bunch of kind of like dealing with myself. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I was dealing with myself in it. I was seeing myself
Yeah.
in a lot of these scenarios. I was feeling like I was a part of the story. I was, but once again, it wasn't a bad thing. It
Yeah.
was a beautiful thing. I'm learning about myself in this. We talk about how relationships
Yeah.
are mirror. It's like essentially like a
Mhm.
mirror.
Yeah.
And you and I have the relationship of being friends, but also when you're talking about these stories, these scenarios, I
Mhm.
can see myself in them just as well on
Absolutely.
this being a mirror also. And
Absolutely.
I feel so, I just feel so good about the conversation. I feel so, it was dope. It was
Yeah.
dope. I'm over here. I'm over the hill for this one. It's, it's amazing. I'm so excited about what's to come, more to
Yeah.
come.
Yes.
And if
Absolutely.
we can, do you have any what do you have coming up as far as Dr. Joy business?
Yeah. Okay.
Where can they find you? I'll put up
Yeah.
a I'll put up a banner after this, but where can they find you? And also, what do you have going on? I know we talked about well, you're not an author yet, right? We talked about this,
Yes, but
right?
I am working. I am working behind the scenes on something. I have given
Okay,
myself
okay,
a hard finish date for that. I am so far on track to meet that goal. So I'm excited about
awesome, awesome,
so you can find me. I'm on social at Joi Hearts, JoiHearts on Instagram. I am on YouTube. I have my series, How to Reinvent Yourself, which I release new episodes on the 22nd of every month.
awesome.
So that started in February. So we're about, what is that, 4 episodes in or something
Mm,
like that. And I'll be releasing another episode on the 22nd of this month. I will be doing a TED Talk, a TEDx talk in August.
come
So
on now.
yeah, that is one of the seeds I planted 10 years ago. That is, I wrote it, I put it on a vision board. I bought a little
Yeah,
book.
we got to clap it up for that because that'll make
Yeah.
those. That's awesome. This is absolutely amazing that
Yeah.
you're doing it. And I can't wait. I can't wait to see this. I can't
Yeah,
wait.
I'm so excited. So if you can't make it live to the TEDx talk, which is going to be hosted at the Miracle Theater in Inglewood,
Mm,
then the video will be released publicly a couple of weeks after. So I'll be sure to share that and make that announcement on my social so you can check it out. I'm incredibly excited about that. And I also have my text community where I host monthly liberation circles the last Saturday of every month.
okay.
And this month, we are doing a lot of what we just did today, which is sort of reflecting on wisdom that we've extracted. You know, we're at the midpoint of the year. I'm a fan of building in these check in points and saying, like, okay, we're halfway through 2025. You probably set some intentions, had some resolutions and goals and things that you wanted to accomplish, achieve, and experience. Where are you on that journey? Do you need to
Mhm.
recalibrate? Do you need to adapt? Do you need to adjust? What does that look like? What have you learned? So this month in our liberation circle is going to be very much that vibe, and it's the last Saturday of the month. So if you text me at 323 629 8508, just text hey or something. That'll get you in, and then you'll receive the weekly messages and the announcements and updates for the Liberation Circle. But again, the phone number is 323-629-8508, and just text hey, and that'll get you in the community and you'll get all the updates. So that's what I have going on. You can follow me on social, you can check out the YouTube series, you can join the text community, and on one or all three of those channels, you will get the updates for all things Dr. Joy, including the upcoming books and projects and things like that. So thank you all
Awesome.
so much.
Awesome. Joy, well, Joy, like I said, so I'm proud of you. I can't wait to see this head talk, Inglewood.
Yes,
Definitely looking forward to that. I'm
yes,
definitely can't wait for the book. Can't wait for that. Whatever you got planned with that, whatever that
yes,
is, plan with
yes.
that. And also, I'm always praying for you. I'm always praying for you. Please continue to pray for me. Um,
Absolutely.
and this has been absolutely amazing. I also we'll talk and we'll figure out a time and we'll figure out if this is something you can do. I would love to also
Yeah.
have you on the safe house with
Yes.
my guys, and we just pop
Yes.
it up. And I would love for them to get a bar of joy. You know what I mean? I think that'd
I
be
would love
just
that
so
too.
dope
I would love for us to share and learn and grow
for
together.
sure,
So
for
you know what
sure.
it is. Send me the invitation, and we will figure out a time to make it happen.
There it is.
I will
There
show
it is.
up, and do all that I do and be all that I am.
Thank you. Thanks
Yeah.
for everybody that tapped in today. I appreciate
Yeah.
all you guys.
Sure.
Shonda, I love you.
Yeah.
Sir No Face, my good brother. I made you a moderator too. Thank you for that, bro. I appreciate you. Missy Vaughn was definitely in the building. Nick was definitely in the building. Sunshine Baby. It's Dub for TV, man. A bunch of people in the building. I thank y'all for stopping by, for listening in. If you missed it, if you're coming in late, if you missed it, if you catch the end of this, it's going to be on my YouTube page, so check it out. I'll be sending links up. Enjoy. I'll have clips for you soon. I'll be posting clips and different stuff like that so people can keep being blessed with some of the things, some amazing things you've been saying, and your beautiful insight on how, your outlook on just life in general. And thank you once again. Thank you again. Thank you again. And I'll be talking to you soon. I love you.
I
And
love
just thank
you.
you. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Me and Joy, we're out. Look forward to the safe room and the safe house coming to you. I'm gonna try to at least do it once a week or once every other week. Don't hold me to that because I don't know. But I don't know. But it's gonna be super great when they show up and they pop up. But yeah, thank y'all for tapping in. I love y'all. See y'all next time. Peace.
Peace.